Hello, hello. Hey, Nui. Today is going to be a very different day, I think, from normal. So let's write out the today command. Adam has been feeling burned out. He hasn't been doing a whole lot lately. I don't think it's worth writing that way. Today will be all about chatting. The stream likely won't last long. Hey, Relio. Hey, Sticky. Yeah, so I think what's tough for me is dealing with ambiguity as a developer. And these are things like I think the way you would typically approach development at a lot of companies is you have a plate and people put work onto that plate, and your job is to tackle it in whatever way your role requires. So you might have to prioritize some of that. You might have to figure out the best way to design something or how to code it. But in general, you're given the work and you don't need to come up with it yourself. So I think there's this extra layer of ambiguity that comes from just ideation that then leads to all of those other things. And that's kind of where I feel here. I'm at this level that's even maybe before ideation, where it's like define what I even want. And I think that's throwing me for a loop. And that's what's leaving me feeling burned out. Because if you look at the last few days, I've done next to nothing. Right? I wrote this note on TypeScript. That's it. I didn't even really use TypeScript. And I haven't finished learning it either. And I'd like to spend some more time on that. Hey, Brad. Hey, Behaves. Hey, Carson. I'm doing okay. I think I'm definitely stressed out, and I need to find a path through this. So there are a couple things that I try to live by. Dennis, welcome back. And thanks for the 5 months. So one is never underestimate your ability to brighten someone's day. And this is something where I think people don't necessarily express how they feel on a regular basis. And so it comes out in these bursts of like moments of vulnerability or a celebration. And so I've had a lot of people say things like, oh man, you really changed my workflow, or I became more organized as a result of you. I'm not fishing for those kinds of lines right now, but that's really powerful. I think all of us can do this. It doesn't matter if you have an audience or not. And the other thing I think is that if I'm ever feeling stressed, I guess there's still the ability to apply this. Like, well, they could still help other people. And so those thoughts kind of led to today, which is like, I think the title is Let's Chat About Development. Hey, how's it doing? So we'll chat for a bit. We'll talk about whatever comes up. And yeah, then I'll figure out where we're going from there. And so the way I see it is there are a few different potential paths that we take. So one is we just chat and end the stream. Two is like chat and transition into something else. Professional chatting, that's right. Hey, developer dad. So I think regardless of this, let's just kind of see where this conversation takes us. Because one of the other things I was debating on is if I'm going to continue with this job search, I've been talking to companies about, okay, is there a part-time gig? And there have been a bunch of people who reached out to me, and it's been interesting to think about, but I don't know if that's going to be the best fit anymore. So I'm thinking of switching into looking into full-time work. And if I'm switching into looking into full-time work, then there are a lot of other considerations I need to make. Like, can I find the time to do what I'm doing right now? Where would the stream factor in? How much is going to change? Should it be remote? Should I even be doing what I'm doing? So this is why this again leads into all of this. So I don't know about the transition to something else part. That was partially due to that and partially due to, these are just the thoughts in my head. Chat in the stream? Yeah, that'll probably happen. Hey, Smurf, thank you. Have you ever felt powerful? Yeah, there have been some times where I feel like, I don't know if you're talking about as a developer, but there are times when you discover new technology and you're like, whoa, this changes everything. And so I remember one of the first times it was abstract syntax trees with JavaScript. And I modified the abstract syntax tree and generated a new program. And I was like, okay, that's pretty amazing. So why can't I expand that? Yeah, there are times like that. Ryma, welcome back for 26 months. I see that you're new here with a tier 3 sub. Let me explain how it works here, Raimo. I give you a moderation sword, and you smack down the spammers and bots. Okay? Sound like a good deal? Did the offer fall through? Other offer? Oh, so the first one that I was talking about the other day, where it was like, here's how the week had gone. It was Monday. I said something like job search begins, and then Tuesday it was job search continues, and then it was like Wednesday that it ended for now. So that was when I had accepted the offer, or it was something like this timeline. It was very short, and that's when I had accepted an offer. And then it wasn't until Friday that they said like, sorry, we moved some things around. And at that point, I hadn't really applied to a ton of places because, yeah, it was on like Tuesday and Wednesday that I was thinking of accepting this offer. So then I applied to more places. Now that puts us at, I guess, 5 days ago. And I've been starting to hear back. I've heard a bunch of different things so far. Some have said, hey, look, we just don't even have part time. So there's nothing to really discuss here. Some said, well, to even figure out if we have part time stuff, we have to go through extra steps. Some have said that the salary I'm asking for is too high. Some I'm still in talks with. So that application process was kind of interesting. But what I would typically do is I reached out to full time employers and said, do you have part time? And yeah, that might not have been the smartest way to approach this. There are lots of other paths to that too, I suppose. What is development for you? So I kind of, what I typically think of as development, to me, development is programming. But I think of like the development process as involving pretty much anything. So it's programming, it's design, and design is split into product and UX and code and whatever else you might need to do. There are any assets that you might need, so things like music, sounds, art. There's anything else, right? There's the process of it all. So in my mind, when I hear development, it just short circuits to, well, we're talking about programming, but it all depends on context. So when I say it in my title of like, hey, let's chat about development, it pretty much means like, let's chat about whatever you guys want. I don't have much of a structure for this. Yeah, contracting and freelance work. So this plays into one of the, I guess it's a fear that I have, and it's that I can do something for myself, but not for others. I don't know if this is even a valid fear, but I talked to someone yesterday who described like, hey, I've got a potential contract, and it's almost exactly what you've done. You just made your own site. You could use the exact same stack. You could use the same vendors and technologies. And I thought, well, I don't know if I could even do that. I don't know what's causing that. I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or like a fear of responsibility for that, or that, yeah, I don't know. I gotta analyze that more. I think Sticky. Hey, Panzer. Taking down bots, yeah. Strike him down. Strike down Nui bot. And so, Cab, I'm not really too bothered by an offer being rescinded. I think this all plays back into this, which is that I went from a period of ambiguity where I'm looking for a job to a period of, okay, now I know that I'm going to have this job, back to a period of ambiguity. So at no point in this process so far had I been looking for what's my dream job, what's my next career path. I was just thinking, how do I make money and spend my resources doing something good for a company? Oh, I'm dropping lots of frames, which means I'm not on my mobile internet, I guess. Okay, well, if this disconnects or if this gets really bad, I will switch, which will pause it to disconnect. We should probably just do that now, actually. Yeah, it's going up. Okay, then here's what I'm gonna do really fast. I'm gonna disconnect my internet. It'll reconnect somewhere between like 30 to 60 seconds, and then we won't be dropping frames anymore. So give me a sec. Okay, what is going on? Okay, finally back. Oh my God. All right, so yeah, I don't know what this even looks like in the VODs. I haven't checked it out because I can't really fix my internet problems. They're but anyway, the reason that that's happening in the first place is because my home internet is just bad. And so I connect my phone, and yesterday it used my phone's connection, and today it didn't for some reason. So I had to disconnect my home internet, and then I accidentally had to set the Wi-Fi. So yeah, I totally messed it up. Anyway, I got asked some questions, and now I don't even know if the people are here to hear the responses to them. Let me see this. I guess these things, but like I said, I don't know if the people are here, but I'll still respond to them. So, weird question: How much personal happiness do you get from streaming, and how much do you weigh that versus making more money and potential full time job? So, I think happiness from streaming, that's kind of tough to gauge. I'd say it's like a 4 to 6 out of 10, maybe. But I think it's like happiness from doing my own thing is like a 10 out of 10 generally. So the two go hand in hand, but I don't think it's the streaming aspect that does it. And then how does one gauge his or her fair salary accurately? This is this is difficult because it's like how do you determine the price of an apple? It's what people are willing to pay, right? And if you get enough people who say, yeah, an apple should cost 60 cents, then cool, an apple costs 60 cents. So it's the same thing here. And I don't know, you're probably not asking from a philosophical perspective of how do prices get formed. So a more concrete way of answering this, I would say, is what skills do you provide? What does the market rate those skills at? And what other benefits or considerations are there? And yeah, so Cab, imposter syndrome, finding the right kind of therapy. Yeah, I think I have to figure out if I'm even suffering from this or if it's something else. Because like I said, I don't know if it's exactly that. And by the way, I don't mind this. The whole point of this conversation is like we should all be able to say pretty much what we want to say. Obviously, respect each other. So, so imposter syndrome. The way I look at it, for anyone, and thank you, Mike. Subbed almost a month ago. Finally able to share it. Thanks. Thank you for a month ago. So the way I look at imposter syndrome is you can do things that you think you can't do. That's how I'd sum it up. So you're an imposter. You have skills to do something, but for some reason you're just not confident in those skills. So that's one way to look at this that I mentioned. And another way to look at it is that there's some other issue, like a fear of commitment kind of thing. And that I feel can be completely separate from imposter syndrome. And I don't know which one is affecting me really. I think my Discord's active, and that's weird. Oh wow, yeah. Streamer mode isn't actually on. It should. Oh, I know why. Because I had OBS open when I turned it off, so I didn't open up OBS again. Yeah. I've thought about working in development boot camps. You mean as a teacher? No, not really. I don't think I'd enjoy that. I don't dislike education, but I think what I don't like about teaching a classroom is that I feel like I'm kind of locked into that technology for the next like 3 6 months, and that my skills would lose sharpness. And by the way, thank you, Nui, for pointing that out. Hey, Python, and hey, Fluffy, and what's the hype about development boot camps? Why not just go to university? So I can't really totally answer this because I haven't been to a boot camp, but I think the pros of a boot camp, at least I'm talking about in the US, it's usually cheaper than a university. It's still expensive, but universities are even more expensive. And it's faster than a university. And you only learn about coding. I think those are the pros. So I think there are a lot of cons as well. But to answer your question, this is why I think people would want it. So you think about it of like, hey, I want to learn how to code, and I've got whatever a $15,000 budget. Well, if you go to university, it's going to cost you probably more in the U.S. and it's going to take you 2 to 4 years, and you're going to learn a bunch of stuff like calculus and chemistry, which maybe you don't care about. While I do these points, I don't think I'll ever totally stop streaming. But when I say like, oh hey, I don't know what'll happen with the stream, I mean there probably won't be a regular schedule. Yeah. What games do I play? Do I ever stream gameplay? The games I'm playing right now are Terraria and Cube World. And I don't typically stream gameplay. There's a command, not really botland. Oh, I know what I was going to do. Hang on a second. Let me do this really fast. How do I do this? Hang on. Hide whispers. There we go. Okay, cool. So now I can just show chat on stream. Now there's nothing private there. I'll say turn off hide whispers on Twitch. Yeah, so I don't find it relaxing to play games on stream. I don't think I'll ever turn into a gaming streamer. I don't think it's going to happen. And I've done it in the past, and that's why LinkedIn is not really Botland playlist. There were a bunch of different videos where I have done it in the past, so I've given it a shot. I've streamed for somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 hours, and most of it was development time. So you'll see occasional videos in here like Super Mario 64 and Hearthstone and Pokemon, but I was never drawn to that. Hey Thoros, good morning. Hey Corey. Hey Taurus. I'm just gonna have all these points forever. You sure are spending a lot here, Neat. Yeah, that's true, Pygon. Yeah, and that's definitely a more formal definition. I think what I'm saying, it was a great generalization of it. Start learning C or C++ first is a good choice. I think so. I got this. Well, I keep doing that. I got this blog post on learning programming. In general, I don't think it matters which one you learn first, especially since they're so closely related. So you could flip a coin and you'd make just as good a decision as if you thought about it for an extra week. How'd you have the courage to quit your last job before Botland? It was a very practical decision that I'd made. I think it came from two things. One, I wasn't learning anymore. And two, I'd been working on the prototype for the game. So this is what caused me to examine, is my job still doing anything for me? And it wasn't. So I thought, okay, I've got to figure out the next step. And I had been working on Botland already. And my wife had said, well, why don't you try turning that into a product? And that's what led to me doing it. So in general, I don't think I have too much of a tendency to steer toward a traditional role or job. So if I don't know. I think it wasn't so much about courage for me. That's how I always looked at it. It's like, well, it just made sense at the time. It wasn't like I was making this big leap. I think a big part of it too is just ignorance and hopefulness. I think I just kind of ignored that, like, oh, hey, things might go wrong. So that's really, to be honest, that's what it is. It's like confidence placed in the wrong things. I I don't think it was more that I believed in my skills or anything. I don't think this was imposter syndrome either. I think it was just like, hey, the conditions were there and I just didn't know any better. So I pursued it. Chess is playing Twitch. I'm not necessarily looking for something else I could stream. I feel like at some point, what I wanted this stream to be is kind of what it had started to look like again this week, where I was going to be learning stuff on stream and you guys could join in on that process, learn along with me, help teach me too. And then, yeah, I would disappear for a little while, make a course. And the reason I'm not doing that today is, like I said, I'm just feeling a little burned out. So. Wouldn't it have to be like 1 3 5 3 1 3? I feel like they've always got a match. Ever heard of Bachelors of Computer Applications? No, but a lot of the degrees that you get that sound like computer science, I never really figured out exactly what they mean. So there's like IT, computer science, software engineering, the thing you just mentioned, computer applications. There's a bunch of these, and yeah, I don't know. All schools might do them a little differently, but either way, I don't know what they turn into. Never played Cube World. How close is it to Minecraft? I'd say it's very far from Minecraft. I don't think there's any building in Cube World. They look very similar. They're both voxel games, but Cube World is mostly about like combat and progression and combat. Honestly, I would not suggest buying Cubeworks right now. I don't think it's in the right spot. Make a chess bot. Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Contrived parlance. I think every degree can call parts A, B, and C different things, and that's why I don't think any of the degree names really matter. I mean, even computer science, there are probably some schools that teach it as it's just programming, and I don't think of computer science that way, but eh, depends on the school, I guess. Hey, Crazy Wolf, and big money. I see Python. Python, did you get my message on Discord, by the way? I had kind of responded to this. I tried sending you a DM, but it said you only accept them from friends, I think, which shows what you think of our relationship. Hey, Ciesco. Yeah. Yeah, so I wonder, there was something that had come up when I had started looking for a job. I was talking about it online on this stream, and I was talking about it from a very kind of selfish point of view of like, okay, how do I find a job? I wasn't talking about how do we generalize this process. But a lot of people came in, and what I typically try to do on the stream is I try to provide value where I can. And so people were asking questions, and I tried to respond to them as much as I could, having worked professionally, having done my own gig for the last 5 years. And I thought of a segment for the stream, Adam's Career Corner. And this would be something more along the lines of we set up a time just for that, and people come in and ask any career questions, any interviewing questions. And I imagine after one or two times doing this, I'd already have a list of how to generalize this process because I've already seen the same kinds of questions repeatedly. And generally work out to like, how do I get better at interviewing? What languages should I learn? What technology should I pursue? And I don't know, maybe like, what do you look for in a job or what kinds of questions should I ask? Hey, Spoodles. Canadian employers recognize these degrees? I don't know. Yeah, I think it all depends. So, for example, I know that if you were to come from another country into the US as a doctor or dentist or something, some countries' degrees won't be recognized in the US, and you'll have to go get pretty much your whole education over again, even though you could have already been practicing in another country. So for Canada, who knows? Like I don't even live in Canada, so I can't really say that. Yeah, there probably is some amount of self doubt that's healthy, just to offset ego and confidence, I think. But I think that's the self doubt that is rooted in reality as opposed to being rooted in being neurotic. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Like knowing what your limitations are can be a good thing, and knowing how to push those limitations and what it'll take. And that could potentially be the difference between a software engineer who says, yeah, this project will only take 2 weeks versus the person who's like, look, this is going to take 3 months of two devs working on it. And I feel like that's sourced from doubt. I don't know if it's sourced from self doubt. Hey, Stork. So that's where the employer comes to get you to take their offer. Wait, what is this in reference to? Rickety, I wonder. I sort of feel the same way, and that I feel like what I want to do is what I've been doing, and the only way to continue to do that is to get money. So I need to pursue a job, but a job is typically done for a career, and I'm not interested in the career aspect right now. There are definitely jobs that are just 9 to 5 job. This is kind of what happens, Lan. It's not that the profession's invalid; it's that we have a certain certification process or onboarding process or whatever you might say for the industry, and it's not compatible with your countries. I've had so I can't really say this was a friend. It was like a friend's significant other. She was I think she was a dentist, and I think it was in India, and she came here and she had to go to school for another like 4 years. But she'd already been practicing as a dentist in India, and yeah, I don't know what the US's stance is on that. I guess it's like, well, we don't necessarily trust that you know what you're doing. I don't know what. But yeah, she couldn't just work as a dentist here. Employers will hire you without a computer science degree. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. I think that there are quite a lot of backgrounds for how to get into doing a computer science related job, which is typically programming. And I think those people should still be able to work. So let's say you have an English degree and you want to work in Google. Like, well, that's a bad example. And Google has employees of every single type, from programming to sales to marketing to whatever. So anyway, yeah, but same thing. If you want to work as a developer, I feel like you should still be able to pursue that route. I don't think you should be closed off to people. It leads to more ideas. Yeah, I think this is true about imposter syndrome and kind of learning what the extent is. This is basically the Dunning-Kruger effect of like once you get to a certain level, you know what you don't know. And so you start to compare yourself to the people who have those pockets of knowledge. But that's kind of without realizing that no one person knows all of it. You'll find a really good front end developer. You'll find a really good back end developer. You'll find a really good full stack developer. But will those people know how to, I don't know, do what you just did for your last project? Maybe, maybe not. I might not become a contractor. Yeah, so these are the kinds of things I'm trying to decide. Like, what do I do from here? And I haven't really sat down and thought too actively about it. I think it's because at this point, I've definitely hit the point where I'm burned out, and spending time thinking about this or doing work is extra. And I need to just kind of step back and think about it. And hey, Augie. If you're fluent in code, well, most employers ignore the fact you don't have a degree. Some will. Some are still very biased toward pursuing degrees. Thanks, Agent Orange. Let's hope Private Orange isn't around. The scapegoat. Yeah, so I think there is still a little bit of a bias toward, hey, you need to have a degree for you to be able to perform at a job, but I think that bias is slowly going away. You ever read those stories on Hacker News where someone says I'm making 15K a month? Yeah, I've read something like that before. I think this is almost always a story of someone got lucky. It's rarely like someone completely analyzed the market and decided that this product could do like 15K a week or 15K a month kind of revenue. I think it was like, yeah, well, my project worked. And that's great. And I still think there's something to be learned there. But it's the survivorship bias that you see in a lot of those where it's like anyone who could make a post like that had to have hit it big. And you don't necessarily know that they did the right things. I could go to Las Vegas and spend all of my earnings and double them. And that doesn't mean that people should do that as a like sound idea to gain wealth. Got an IT diploma and suck at programming? Well, Augie, are you doing any personal projects to try to work on your skills? I guess actually the first question is, do you care about improving your skills? Hey, Hamijo, what are we talking about? So I got the today command that kind of explains a little bit. We're just chatting. I'm just wherever this goes, and as long as it's still kind of related to development, I think it's fine. So kind of hard to sum up what we've talked about so far. A lot about careers and yeah, just development world. If it's another degree, what do you think? What do you mean, Alka? I'm not sure I know the context of that. My job requires a degree because the government contracts they've been on, and the contracts require, yeah, yeah. So I think there are still some jobs in development that will require a degree like this, and I think there are going to be mostly extenuating circumstances. And then the ones where they say that a degree is required, I think is going to be because there's the bias behind it. So I definitely can't talk about every subdomain of development and say, oh yeah, here's how the world works. But like I said, I've been looking at just general development jobs, and I don't see a degree requirement as much as I did, let's say, like 5, 10 years ago. Is a portfolio necessary for backend dev, or would something like a link to GitHub suffice? I feel like GitHub at that point is your portfolio. So the way I look at it is a portfolio is really important. But the only reason it's important is if your potential employer looks at it. A lot of people, from what I've seen so far in the last like week of applying to jobs, many people will not even look at your resume or your portfolio at first. They will search through for keywords just to make sure you're not like, well, I'm a Python developer applying for a, I don't know, spaceship job. I'm totally making these up here. But then they'll have some screening questions and they'll just kind of talk to you. And at that point, maybe they've looked at your portfolio. But remember that there's a lot of layers to this. So typically you'll go through recruiting and then you'll get to an engineering team. And the recruiter isn't going to go looking through your GitHub probably to see like, well, is it good coding style? Does everything make sense? So in general, yeah, I think a link to GitHub is good. I think a link to a project is great. Your GitHub might link to that project too. So for example, you might have like a library you made with a demo. Yeah, I got to think of whether I want to go into this world. This is where I just had to take a step back. Goose, thanks for resubbing. I haven't actually gotten down to it in chat, but I'll type the welcome back. Actually, let's scroll down now. Okay, 9 months. So that's welcome, baby. We did it. All right, let's keep going here. In psychology that involved 2 years of computer science. Does that look good to an employer in software development, or should I be pursuing a master's? I think you should try applying and see if it looks good. The way that I would always approach this is, can you talk about what the job requires? Do you know those technologies? Do you have a decent enough portfolio? So you probably already have enough to be able to get a junior position. Yeah. And yeah, Agent Orange, yeah. Yeah. I I don't watch a lot of Twitch now. So a lot of times I find out about people because they come into this channel first, and then usually I'll follow them and like check out their channel. And yeah, they seem cool. Thinking of making a TypeScript course. I'd like to at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen. I'm very burned out right now. People on LinkedIn are mostly interested in my skill set and experience. Not one of them is about my degree. Yeah, and this also depends on how far out of college you are. So I got a degree. I don't think that matters at all at this point. I've been in the industry for long enough where if you're asking about my degree, it's mostly to figure out if I confirm your biases or not. So like, do you think someone needs a degree? Okay, yeah, this guy's got one. Great, cool. Let's consider him. That's what I think it is. Oh yeah, building. Okay, okay. So Rickety, I think the distinction that I was trying to make is, I think some people will read those articles and be like, okay, man, all I need to do then is if I want to make money, just make this one big project. So if you're pursuing it for the point of money, that's the wrong idea. But yes, I totally agree. It can be fun, it can improve your skills, and it might make money. And that's the exact right reason to pursue it, I feel. I've been a professional front end developer for 8 years, and I have an intern currently, which I make sure to pass on to them. I have the perfect answer for this. You ready? Knowledge. For real though, I think I'm guessing your question was what kind of tasks should I give them? But I have a blog post here on learning how to program, and you've been a professional developer for 8 years, so it's not for you, but it's for that intern basically. So what I always suggest is you tackle a project slightly beyond your current skill level, and that the scope is reasonable. So it's an intern. I don't know if that means that they're only there for 3 months, or if it means that they're working part time, or that they're, I don't know what, whatever. You'd have to figure that out about scope. So you could determine both of these parts for the intern. But those I think are the portions that are needed. But in general, your goal is kind of to grow them in addition to getting some value out of them, I feel. I spend my days doing nothing at all. Programming has stopped being fun. Also, lead code style interviews just demotivate me. Thoughts? This is tough. When was the last vacation you took, Hamija? Because that's how I always look at this. That's the first thing. Is like, have you taken a guilt-free vacation that lasted for longer than a few days? Because that's probably the best thing to do right now. By the way, you can see that I'm answering questions from 9:11. It's currently 9:15. So this is not a stream delay. It's that the scroll bar is just higher up in here. Does a portfolio hold as much value than a degree? So this all depends on the employer. I think a portfolio is more valuable than a degree because a portfolio shows what you can do. A degree shows what you should be able to do. So one is the theory and one is the practice. Then again, with a portfolio, it's always tough to know, did this person do all of this themselves? And yeah, who's going to actually look through it? Those are other questions that I have. What are some things you wish you knew going in your first SWD job? Start next month. Biggest thing whatsoever is ask questions instead of spending too long trying to figure things out. Self-sufficiency is incredibly important. So you should spend some time figuring it out. But it's that fine line between, you're working at a big company, you've got a lot of very smart people you're working with, you should be using them as resources. And if they ever push back, like listen to that, because it's possible that you're asking them things like, hey, how do I add two numbers in Python? Like, that's a bad question to ask a coworker. That's a great question to ask Google. So there's no dumb question, but there's a dumb person to ask that too, pretty much. Like, and I get that in the stream sometimes where someone's like, hey, can JavaScript do this? And I think, why did you ask me this? Like, go ask Google. So yeah, I would say definitely make sure you ask questions. Make sure you don't stew on like perceived ignorance for too long, because then it becomes really hard. If you're like a year into your job and you haven't asked something you should have asked in the first week, like, hey, who's responsible for this? And they're like, how have you been doing your job if you didn't know that? Now, let's see. I think it become more necessary in the future. I don't know about that, but that's subjective for sure. Which first program? Definitely take a look at the learn command, because this is something you'll have to answer for yourself. But yeah, take a look at the learn command. And yeah, I agree with this too. This is what I say. Reinventing the wheel is bad or it's great. So it's bad for your job and it's great for learning. So if you want to learn how to do something, you should 100% reinvent the wheel. Like, and I say this in that blog post too. If you want to learn how to make a game, don't design the game from scratch. If you want to learn how to program a game, don't design the game from scratch. Just go pick one that's already designed, so you don't need to answer those millions of decisions around like, well, should this do this much damage or should we put the UI over here? Just like learn the thing you want to learn, and for that, reinvent the wheel and never try to claim it as your own. Yes, the comment space. I know. I'm sorry. I haven't been getting a lot of sleep lately either. All right, let's keep scrolling down. Pass the recruiter step. Hopefully, some from engineering goes right. Yeah. And I hope so too, because that's where I think the portfolio actually makes sense. Let's see. We think about the notion of getting CS plus some other degree, as if computer science is not enough to bring serious value. I think I need to know more of the context of this question. In my mind, this is not really a question. Like, if you're applying to be, what do I say here? Let's say you're applying to be a NASA engineer. You probably could benefit from like computer science plus physics or something along those lines. So yeah, at that point, there could be very specific jobs that you might need. But in general, if you're just looking for a development job, I don't think you need more than computer science. But yeah, for sure, there are domains where it'll matter a lot more. Or maybe you're making some like medical software and having a degree in biology could help. You know, that that's certainly an option. But yeah, it depends on the job. Burned out for years now because of management, starting not caring and being lazy at work because of huge technical debt. They can't fire me anyway. Yeah, this is really tough, Haas. Yeah, really tough. I think a change is needed for sure, and it's hard to say what exactly. Because some people in this case would take a sabbatical, some people would just take a vacation, and some people would continue coasting. So if you can find a personal project to reinvigorate you, yeah, that is difficult. And IQ test had no programming, didn't score high enough, and they don't know how to pass through. Yeah, these are the kinds of things where it's like, did that person dodge a bullet? Is that a company you want to work for? It's hard to say. Yeah. How do you manage timing in development? How do you calculate the time to finish a project? What are the steps? So much of this comes from experience, because every part of estimation is obviously going to have like gauge how long you think the task will take. But figuring that out takes so much from your experience of, okay, have I gotten a task like this in the past? What are the difficulties? And so the way I think you can kind of narrow this down is a little bit of design, a little bit of prototyping, because these don't necessarily take too long, and a little bit of kind of asking around. And so typically what you'll hear is take your first estimate and triple it. So we have a tendency to simplify things in our head, but then I think almost every programmer who's been working for longer than a year or two has had a problem that they thought, oh, this will be fast. And then 4 hours later, they figure out that they have no idea what's going on. So that's what leads to these estimates inflating beyond their original accounts. So I think it's experience. And until you get to that point, talk to people, design, prototype a bit. Hey, Aaron, welcome. How can you make a DevOps project since it's mostly job related and potentially requires less coding? So GitHub in that sense is useless for infrastructure guys. I think making a DevOps project kind of, yeah, you're right. It doesn't really make sense because you apply DevOps to an existing project of continuous integration and deployment. And setting up your infrastructure, and maybe even code that infrastructure. But I think you can still show all of those parts off. So if you think about it, like make a chat application. The chat application itself is relatively simple. You have a set of chat rooms, and the people in those chat rooms get the messages, and that's it. That's your application. That takes you like a day to make. Then the DevOps stuff, you spend the rest of your time on. So the chat application is just like a vehicle for the DevOps. That's what I would say. Knowledge. Yeah, sorry, I'm 8 minutes now delayed on chat. I am trying to scroll through and respond to everything, which maybe is not a good idea. So I'll try to skim through it a little bit faster. Let's see. Self-taught developer, found out taking projects over my skill level will reward itself. Yeah, you know what I've heard, and I'm probably going to butcher the phrasing on this, but a lot of times at a company, you will have the opportunity to work on something that you don't feel confident that you could do, but probably no one's going to take on that work anyway. So what's the worst thing that happens if you take it on and you don't necessarily deliver? The company wasn't going to get someone else to work on it anyway. Now, I know there are some bad things that can happen, especially because even if you play all your cards right, the politics game could screw you over. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to stretch yourself a bit. And I think degrees for development you could look at as maybe being useless, but I think degrees for other careers, I feel like they might still be important. So like a doctor, I think it's probably a good idea to have a degree for that. Is the course business up to your expectation, or do you need more time to build it? Oh yeah, I definitely need more time to build it. And I don't mind answering this stuff. I think the total revenue at this point is like, I'm going to make up a number here, like 1350. And it's been about probably like 50 something days. So that's not really at the level I wanted to be at. But granted, I'm not reaching out to more people. So the people who know about the courses are the people in this stream, and the people in this stream have already bought them if they wanted to buy them. I'm very full stack dev, and then I can set up infra, do the ops thing, program back end and front end. Wait, Catalan, what was the context? I don't understand the point behind this. I feel like this is humble bragging, but maybe I'm misinterpreting. Amount of technologies are for web development. Oh yeah. So web dev, this is one of the most common things that I've heard from people getting into it, even if they're already developers, which is that it's super overwhelming because technologies from 5 years ago might not even be around today, and even if the technology exists, now there's like 6 other sub technologies to help with it. So, for example, you've probably heard of React as a framework, and now there are things like, okay, React Router, React Native. There are however many other libraries that intersect with React that someone looking into this might not realize. Where do I start? What do I do? Hey, APX. It is appallingly late. Yeah, if you end up having to ask the question 2 months into working there, it'll look much worse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Please talk about what this article talks about, JavaScript local storage and locking issues. I'm in Nuba.js. I probably cannot know because I'm super far behind on chat and I'm not going to take a look at this just yet, but maybe later. And thanks to Bread Tim. Thanks for resubbing. I'll type there. Welcome back. Hey, Nuka Luca. Long time no see. Hope things have been going well. And hey, Yui. Burnt out for years from my last job, quit, moved to Texas in the middle of a pandemic. Super happy about it. Nice, yeah. So this was very recent then, huh? Trying to learn R, have such a bad time managing with balancing school and work. Yeah, that can always be tough. I don't really think that ever gets easier because you have 2 responsibilities right now that are sort of set in stone. So if you can't just quit one of them, then yeah, it's just going to be time management. And what is really more about, I think, is energy management. Like, do you have the mental capacity to focus on school, work, and your personal project? And for a lot of people, it's just no. And so you have to play the waiting game. As an employer of full stack developers for a large multinational project, we're not looking for degrees at all. The candidate respond promptly. What kind of personal programming projects they've done. So, Lackey, I think this is the right mindset to have with all of this. But this is not common. And you might have heard of that expression that a few bad apples spoil the rest of the bunch. If enough recruiters don't look at your materials that you have, if enough recruiters want to give you really long take-home projects, then as a candidate, you can't know, is this going to be one of those people? How do I know to trust them? And it's kind of the same thing from the recruiter's perspective of, how do I know this candidate isn't lying about everything on their resume? So I feel like it's this It's this haggling game almost, and it sucks for everybody. Thanks, Fat. What constitutes being good at programming? It seems that you can use the tools of a language well, but you hit the skill ceiling of a language quickly. What makes you a better programmer? What makes you a better programmer is cutting down on all other costs. So if you think about programming as like, hey, I have a function that needs to add two numbers. Okay, I can write this in JavaScript and there, I'm done, right? But not really. Like a good programmer is probably going to do things like consider edge cases. This function in JavaScript will work when you pass in strings. Do we want it to do that? Have I commented the function if it needs to be commented? Have I tested it? What will a future developer see when they look at this? Is it going to be obvious what's going on? What about how does this factor into the larger system? Where are the design patterns behind this? And sure, this is one function. I know I'm going overboard. If you were to write a sum function, this is probably totally fine. You don't need to consider a whole lot. But I think a good programmer is one who considers how does this fit into the bigger picture and how do we make sure we're not adding tech debt here? Because it's one thing to get like a shoddy system propped up quickly and say, yeah, this works, but maybe 2 years down the line, we're going to want something different. And it's another to pursue it thoroughly. Job ads versus junior software engineers are wrong. You know what I found the other day? I got such a kick out of this. I saw a job ad that said, we want you to have 8 years of experience in React. And I thought, okay, let me go check because that sounds wrong to me. Where is Web Framework? Here we go. And so I looked at the Wikipedia and it said May 29, 2013, 7 years ago. Now you might say, well, wait a second. What if you're watching this in the future? What date is it now? Well, it's June, so that's basically exactly 7 years ago. It's not like they rounded down or something. So how is it that someone's asking for 8 years of experience? Maybe there was a pre-built version you could have gotten, but in general, it's like I just yeah. So I think that's kind of what you might be talking about here too. That is overwhelming, and I would say if you meet close to 50% of the requirements, you should apply. And some jobs even explicitly say that, like, hey, you don't need to match all of these, especially as a junior software engineer, where they're going to assume that they need to teach you a little bit more than they would need to teach a senior software developer. You think it's possible to get a software engineering job with just the courses as an education way without studying computer science? I'm not sure what you mean by this, Swiss. With just the courses as an education way? You mean like you took programming courses? Because yeah, I think so. I don't think the degree matters as much anymore. And I think it's more about can you prove that you can do the job? And a lot of ways that you end up doing that is by a portfolio if you don't have a degree. So a degree for some people is, oh yeah, that's proof you can do it. And for other people, it's going to be, well, let's actually see some projects you did. Context is that I should be like some kind of rock star because I really know a lot of stuff, but I'm just another loser. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I don't think of that as this is all in the eye of the beholder. It sounds like you are doing a good job and that you should give yourself more credit and don't be so hard on yourself. You spend minutes trying to find out how to name a variable. Yes. So that never goes away. No developer is ever good at naming variables. It always takes a 3 week long committee backed research project to figure out how you name each variable. Never be afraid to ask questions. If the company you work for doesn't encourage things you don't know, you shouldn't say there. I agree with this. I generally agree with this, but like I said, I think this needs to be sort of offset by some self-sufficiency. So if you don't look at least a little bit on your own, then I think that can start to lead to the slippery slope of relying on other people to solve your problems. And at that point, some people might joke that you become a manager. But I do think there's a certain amount of understanding you gain by looking into something yourself that you would not gain by somebody else telling you. And that's why I think it's good to kind of balance both. But yes, at first at a company, err on the side of asking more questions than being self-sufficient because they'll probably steer you more toward, hey, this is something you should have been able to figure out yourself. Always have problems with pushing yourself too much and ending up burning out. Yeah, I think so. But I wonder if that's the norm and that the people who don't burn out are just exceptional human beings. Or maybe I like making excuses. I don't know. Chat, could you help? Where to start with machine learning? I hope chat can help with this. I can't suggest anything specific for that. One feedback I can give is sites like Udemy adjust the price depending on the country you're selling in. Yeah, I have a price adjustment for just one other country besides the US right now. Whoa, what is that? Unicorn horn and two party hats. Nice TS. Hey there, dude. By the way, if you guys can hear that hammering sound, it's that the roof work still has not completed after months. Good God. Let's see. Okay, so I assume these are at the React thing. So that was about 4 minutes ago. Yeah, they want someone who built React. Can you imagine? Requirements. You must have worked at Facebook. You must actually be Mark Zuckerberg. Is it? It might be a trick question. I don't know. I think it's just a miscommunication between engineering and recruiting. Recruiting was like, well, we want someone with a lot of experience. So who cares how long this technology's been around for? We're going to say 8 years. Yeah, that sounds good. They want Java experience with Angular and Node. I mean, technically, you you could have your backend in Java, except for then I don't know why they list Node.js as well. But yeah, you can have your front end in Angular. Tegra. A junior dev picks the first answer from Stack Overflow. A senior dev picks the right answer. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, you can post links, Scugs. Yeah, I have a links command that says it's okay as long as it's not a bad link. That sounds tautological, but yeah, some streamers don't allow links at all. Reminds me of the framework creator that didn't get a job because he's been 10 years in the framework he created. Yeah, yeah. This actually had kind of bugged me the other day. So I have this site. I think I might have mentioned this yesterday, but this is my portfolio. It's not very long, and it's almost entirely links, so you can see exactly what something was. So if you click this, it takes you to Botland. I applied to a job, and someone said, "Oh yeah, sorry, you don't seem to have experience in our stack." And I was like, "Wait, what? Like I've got almost 5 years of experience in practically everything." And he said, "Oh well, I looked at Botland, and it looked like it was made in Unity." And I just thought, oh man, like if you scroll down just even a half a page, it says the technologies I use that pretty much matches your stack. And that just, I don't know, left a really bad taste in my mouth because I thought this is the level of effort that a lot of recruiters are going to do. They're going to just glance over what you have, they're going to click something, make a bunch of assumptions, and then make a decision on those assumptions. So yeah, I could totally see this happening. Framework creator, and get a job in the framework he created. Yeah. Get another take-home test sitting in my email inbox for a job I know nothing about, and they won't even talk to me. I would just see. I know this is a tough position to be in because you don't necessarily have any leverage. But I would just decline these at this point. In fact, I got an email from a job I applied to with like a very large questionnaire saying complete this before we even have a screening phone call. Now, a screening phone call is like the lowest cost kind of interview I feel because it's, hey, do you have a job? Why are you at that job? Why are you leaving the job? Like, what are your skills? And instead, they're putting a lot of that in a text to the point where I don't even think I'm going to respond to the email. Now, that's a different level than a take-home test. I'm kind of drawing the line even sooner, but it's partially because I'm not super interested in the job. We're just super lazy. That's why we don't burn out. I see complacency in a lot of professional developers, and I don't think this is true of everybody for sure, but I think it's easy to get into a habit where showing up is success. And I think that was kind of my last job, is that the majority of the engineers there would show up and would do, I don't know, 2, 3 hours of work, and they still had jobs. I don't think people were very serious there. How does roofing take that long? Do you ever wonder if they're really just up there banging on the roof and not actually doing anything? I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. I don't have a frame of reference for this because I don't think I've ever been around roofing work in the past. So to me, it's like, I guess this is how long it takes. No, they confuse the two. Okay, yeah. I was going to say, because I actually have seen some back end Java, front end JavaScript. What makes a dev language good? Popularity. Oh, what makes a development language good? Oh, I don't think popularity makes anything good necessarily. Although I think it can be used as a tool to refine things. But just because something's popular doesn't mean it's good. So what makes a development language good, I think, is it easy to express your algorithms and data structures in? Is it resilient to bugs? Is it, I don't know, there's a lot of properties. Someone's trying to trick you in an interview, they probably won't be great to work for. Yeah, I agree. But these are the kinds of things where it's like, how do you know that? How do you know this isn't a case of Hanlon's razor, where never attribute to malice what can adequately be explained by ignorance or stupidity? Like maybe they're not trying to trick you, maybe they just don't know. They're not trying to be malicious. Get a new role, get in there, hit the ground running, innovate and create, and then it becomes maintenance work, and you lose your drive. Yeah, I think this is probably part of why software engineers in general seem to burn out, because I think all software has these same aspects to it. Where, sorry, every time I try speaking, there's like a drilling sound over there, and I have to regain my focus. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities in the software engineering process, and a lot of it is like dealing with tech debt, dealing with legacy code, understanding complex systems that you might never have to touch. Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's just a compliment. I mean, they didn't want to hire me, and then at that point, they'd already made an opinion, you know. And thanks, Twitchler. Yeah, I can go back to work now. Yeah, yeah, I am. Yeah. And do I have a degree? Yeah, I do. I don't know if someone already typed the command, so I'll type it again. But it's the ACJ command. Hate meaning other programmers' code. Yeah, hiring recruiters mean you need to have 10 years of experience. Underestimating other people. Okay, I'm gonna turn this up to maximum because you can probably hear that now. You're working right now, but really you're watching this. Yeah, these conversations I think have been really helpful for people, and I'm doing this honestly out of laziness. Like I am burnt out, and I don't want to. I don't want to do the things that are most important right now, so I'm putting that stuff off. And I feel like this can help provide value. And so I started this stream by saying, never underestimate your ability to brighten other people's days. I kind of feel like I'm struggling myself, so I'd like to at least have a chat and help out where I can, if at all possible. Can you talk a little about the reviewer and recruiter's feedback when you explain your current job and all you've accomplished? Wait, what's these? Talk a little about the reviewers. I'm not sure if this is a question about what I had said about that Unity comment, but in general, when I hear feedback from potential recruiters about what I've done, they generally like my background. Hang on. Okay, sorry. Just saying hi to my wife. Oh yeah, some of these recruiters are getting wacky with their job. Oh yeah. So let's see. Just a bunch of guys standing on the roof taking turns hitting with their hammer. Like this guy is really not catching on. It's been months. Shouldn't he have noticed the roof is done? Yeah, well, Smurf, I think there are a lot of factors going into this. I think one of them is that there's a race to the bottom when you're hiring contractors or freelancers where you think we want someone who's going to charge us the least and can still do the job. And the repercussions of hiring the person that's charging the least won't be apparent for a couple of years. And so then you hire people to deal with that legacy code. And the other factor I think is that as you become more senior, your salary expectations grow, but maybe the amount of impact you can provide for the job doesn't grow proportional to that. And maybe that's where you just hire two junior developers for the price of a senior developer and pretty much get the same work done. And I think there's this other property where the way that you generally get the highest income as a software developer is by moving to other companies and just bouncing back and forth. And each time you'll get a boost to your salary. But by staying in the same company, you won't get that same boost. So by hiring two junior developers, I assume that they count on you staying there for a little bit longer than you should if you cared about your highest salary level that you could get. And take care, Caliber. I probably already missed you because that was 4 minutes ago. Sorry, I'm still scrolling down through chat. Had 3 jobs in 4 years in web dev, and each one I've gotten through knowing people that work there. Another route. Yeah, that's what I think I was kind of counting on for the part-time stuff here. And I have had a lot of people reach out to me, and I don't know if I'm being like too picky or what, or that the job opportunity that I'm looking for doesn't exist or something. This is what I find very frustrating about the hiring process in general. It's that you can be the best developer in the world, but if no one knows it, then it doesn't matter. So it turns into a marketing problem. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best dev in the world. I always want to preface by saying that. But this is something that just never sits well with me for some reason. I don't think I'm the best dev in the world. I don't think I am a bad developer. And yet, I feel like what's most important about the skills that I provide is that I think I can learn and mesh with whatever technology that I need to learn. And I think that's an important skill to have. And yet, I can't necessarily communicate that to a someone hiring. And even on this hire.adamlearns.com thing that I have, I listed out some technologies here, and I kind of talk about like, okay, Botland's a strategy game. This is so much more in depth than just Botland as a strategy game. And if you look at this and think, hey, it was made in Unity, this is just so many systems that were put together to make a game, and then something that was launched. And I don't have the time to list it out there, and people probably wouldn't care if I listed it. So yeah, I think going through people you know is the easiest because that just saves them time. If you want to do something, change the software testing. I worked as a software development engineer and test at Microsoft for about 3.5 years, and I did not like that role at all. So I don't think I'll ever try primarily being a tester again. What piece of software feels most like a wonder of the world to you? Google Earth and Maps is my pick. Oh man, that's tough. That's really tough. I haven't experienced this software myself, and it's also a lot of hardware. But I got to say, Amazon Go is pretty interesting. It's a technology where you walk into the grocery store, you pick things up, and you leave. You don't ever scan them or anything. You just walk out of the store. That's crazy. That is that's so many different pieces of computer science being put together for that. So despite that I haven't used it, despite that Amazon doesn't need any more recognition, I feel like that's pretty crazy. The thing that I've been most in awe of lately, though, has been RTX Voice. Man, it says right here, uses AI to remove background noise. So I could be clapping my hands right now, and this is actually me clapping my hands. I hope you're not actually hearing that and that the technology is working. But that's as I'm talking, it just filters those out. I think that's really crazy too. I'm just always impressed by tech. I think the more high tech we get, the more I feel like I'm living in science fiction. Working as well on a 10-year-old CMS. It's all to work with. And at some point, you must have just thought, 7 years in, could they have just spent 2 years building a new CMS and then we wouldn't be here today? Yeah. And welcome back, Maxwell. Maxwell, you've been subbing for a long time, right? Let me scroll all the way down. Yeah, 37 months. My goodness. Thank you. Sorry, I'm very scrolled up in chat, so I'm still delayed on stuff by 5 minutes or so. How can we help you enlighten your day? No, just by being here, guys. I'll figure this out with time. This is something that my wife has been saying is like, look, things will eventually be fine. And I say, look, I know that. I definitely know that. They've always eventually been fine. And I'm sure this time is no different. I don't think this is going to be like my undoing as a human or that I'll be out on the street or something. So I'll get there. You can choose to start a project or be part of a bigger project that's already running. What will you choose? I can't definitively say I take one or the other every time. I think it would depend on the projects. So I know that's kind of a wishy-washy answer. I would generally prefer to start a project myself. Actually, yeah, I think I generally prefer that. Isn't everything technically a race to the bottom? I think some people have a discerning eye for quality and know where that gets you. So, for example, I think this is a lot of the big tech companies. They won't hire someone that they're going to be able to pay $12 an hour to because they know what that'll do for them. So, what they do is they pay quite a lot of money, knowing that they'll get the value out of them in the long run. Don't stay in the same company. Okay, so here's where I think this is important to say. Don't stay in the same company if you're looking for the highest salary. Otherwise, always feel free to stay in the same company. I've heard people start questioning themselves of like, man, I've been in the same company for 6 years. I don't see any of the other people around me doing that. That does not matter. Like, if you're happy at your company and you're happy with the salary you're making, you should definitely stay. If you find other opportunities or you're just looking to improve your salary, yeah, I think you should switch. tooling becoming more and more rapid to develop, even at lower technical levels. It's almost like the tooling frameworks are helping support the right spot. Yeah, this is kind of true. I definitely see this. I especially see this in game development. If you wanted to make a game in 1995, you probably needed to make an engine yourself, and then you need to make the game. And now in 2020, you definitely don't need to make the engine yourself. You just need to make the game. And so I could right now like load up Unity or Unreal Engine and probably have like a really simple just walk around a 3D world thing up and running in what, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? This is assuming I had the assets and whatever else. But doing that from scratch in your own game engine is never going to be 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You have to make that engine. Like even rendering a triangle on the screen is going to take you probably 5 minutes, much longer than that, I assume. But yeah. So yeah, I do see tooling kind of changing this stuff. The other thing I think that would be really interesting if there's ever like code writing AI. So right now there's AI that tries to write code and it generally gets like a function or two or even a file. But to get it to write an entire system on its own, that would be crazy. And then that would probably just invalidate most programmers' jobs. Yeah, this is something I kind of think about, Catalin. That full stack engineers are a jack of all trades and a master of none. That's not actually necessarily true. Usually, I think they have a specialization in some part of the stack. But I think there are more people moving to full stack developers as jobs. So I mentioned this myself. I used to work as an SDET at Microsoft. And that role, software development engineer and test, that T part isn't exactly there anymore. They now just have SDEs, so software development engineers, who happen to write tests. And so a full stack developer is like someone who I guess they just cobbled together every job. You do back end, you do front end, you do DevOps, and part of whatever you're doing here would also involve testing. Probably for all of this, I guess, when it's read it as a fourth thing. And so now they don't have to hire 4 individual people. And yeah, I don't know if maybe that is part of that race to the bottom. Have an amazing resume and cover letter, and you'll get the job. Yeah, I think it's hard to know who you're competing against, though, because you typically won't see other people's resumes. So you could make a resume that you think is flawless, and then someone else goes and makes an entire website that's actually a game that leads you through their whole experience and gets coverage on Reddit and Hacker News. And you guys might have seen things like that before. They're flashy, that's for sure. There, dude. You'd have to sacrifice your dignity for that. I was in the same place for 4 years. You got bad raises even after complaining. Found a new place doing the exact same thing for twice the salary. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And this is what a lot of employers probably count on, is that you won't look anywhere else because it's just it's inertia. It's easier to stay where you are. LinkedIn Premium basically turned on a switch for me. I had 10 DMs a day from recruiters. Eventually I found someone that got me in the door. Nice, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I've been given that suggestion and I guess I didn't exactly know what it would lead to. Kind of interesting, right? Like pay this company $30 a month and you'll probably end up making way more money in the long run. That's the sales pitch of many companies, not necessarily through recruiting, but just like, hey, buy our product, you'll save a bunch of time or a bunch of money developing it yourself. And it's always hard to know when is it a good idea. Sometimes I want to do a project, as soon as the setting up part of it won't work, I just give up. Couch, I think, if I'm not mistaken, given some of your other questions, I think this is one of the things you should focus on, is getting past those initial humps of the project. Because chances are you'll encounter that with almost every project of, it's the first time I'm doing something in here, so how do I do it? And this happened to me for Botland, for example, of like, oh, it's the first time that we've needed to send an email to someone. So the first time you do it, you don't already have an email function like send email and you pass in their address and you pass in the message or something like that, right? You've got to go figure out, okay, how do we do this? And then setting all that up takes some time. And then eventually now you have this function. So sending your second email from a function is dead simple because now you have this and you can just call it. So that's what starting a project is. It's setting the foundation for everything you're going to do. How do I render something to the screen? Where do messages go? What does the styling look like? And once you have something, you can build on it. Which thing a computer engineer can do that a computer science graduate can't? I think this all just comes down to what do the degrees mean. So in my mind, there's nothing really. because I think of them as the same degree, but some schools might differentiate. Yeah, marketing skills. And I wonder, is there something in my mind that's fundamentally incompatible with getting better at marketing? Like, like one of the things that I definitely notice about a lot of marketing is if you're shady, you'll make strides sooner. This is not me denigrating marketing as a whole, but what I have seen from many concrete implementations from companies of things like GDPR, e-privacy regulation, any other legislature that I might have seen kind of violated by this is that, hey, if you just ignore consent, then you can get a lot done with tracking cookies and analytics and yeah, all you have to do is just violate the user experience. And then yeah, but you'll get all that data, and if you don't get sued, then did it really matter in the end? And I take a stance against that, but I think it's only hurting me in the end. It's not doing anything for me. And yeah, so I wonder with this other marketing stuff, it's like I can probably sell someone on on me being able to perform any role. I have a feeling I could sell people on that, but I don't want to sell people on that. I want to sell people on me being able to do the role well that I know that I can do well. That's very tough for me. Some libraries just wouldn't even work even though I did everything properly. You know, when this happens, I think Couch, here's where, so there's a saying that I really like. If the problem seems too big, then it's that the first step isn't small enough. So in this case, you had a problem. It was you want to automate a spreadsheet, and your first step was like, okay, figure out how to do it with Python. Maybe a better first step would be like, just figure out how other people do it. And maybe they don't use Python. Maybe they have a spreadsheet automation language built into whatever it is you were trying, and maybe that's much easier to learn. So if you can't break down the problem, try working around the problem to see if that helps. Okay, now how far delayed in chat am I? I'm like 9 minutes delayed. Yeah, clapping you to my mic. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm very delayed. So for anyone wondering, is he streaming with a delay? No, it's just 9:53 for me right now, and I'm looking through chat. It's relatively old. Basically, get away with doing nothing as a programmer. It took me a few years to figure out why my coworker was getting all the credit and doing nothing. Yeah, and sometimes you won't have any insight into that. Could be that a manager takes credit for everything of like, yeah, this is my idea, even though it was one of their direct reports. The more tech we have, the more we live in a dystopia. Yeah, I think this is something I definitely see effects of this. And yet I also wonder how much we're just shedding light on. Like, I don't think human nature has ever changed with any of the technology we've had. I think people generally strive for like power and greed and wealth. But tech sometimes enables you to do that much more easily. You can oppress people around the world if you want. Yeah. Watch a streamer that has a kid. When the kid comes in the room, he turns it on. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I've had to turn it on because of all the roofing noise over the last how many months. But also as it gets warmer and warmer, because summer will heat everything up, that I'll probably have the AC on at some point. Am I in financial struggles? No, I'm not in financial struggles. I'm in like identity struggles. I, for the last 5 years, was doing this startup, right? And the startup was really two things. It was Botland and it was Adam Learns. And now I have to say, like, well, what's the next step? Is it that? Can I still do it? How do I make money? So it's not like if another month goes by, I'll be out on the street or something. It's more so that I always like pursuing what the most important thing is. And I think the most important thing right now is applying for jobs. And I think it's very hard to just do two things at once. So I apply to jobs, but then what? Then there's a waiting game. Excuse me. Has anyone ever told me I look like Jeff Goldblum? Funny you should mention that. I have a note called the Goldblum list that I have added to over and over. So yes, people have. And now your note is there too. Yeah, just outsource all my own work. I think someone had done that before. Oh, same company for 18 years. Wow. Yeah. First job, I was at the place for 6 years. Feel like it helped me a lot. How to operate in Patch I wrote 5 years ago. Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Actually, having to maintain your own code too, I think that gives you some insight. What is a software job? at a somewhat large or FANG tier company look like? How much of your work is actually making decisions or just converting specifications to code? I can only comment. I worked at Microsoft. I can only comment on that experience. But I was also an SDET, so I don't think it's really relevant too much anymore. So yeah, it's hard to say. I think you are given a lot of responsibility and you're expected to deliver on that and understand the impact of that responsibility. Whereas other companies, I sometimes feel like, well, if it works, and we're not going to question it too much more. Hey, Ubi. What aspects of software testing didn't you like? Software quality engineer do a lot of different tasks nowadays. There were a couple things I didn't like. One is the lack of ownership. As a software development engineer and test, I was testing other people's code. And so I needed to understand it as well as that person understood it, who designed it, but I didn't do any of the design and I didn't write any of the code for it. And so I really disliked that part of it. I think this is very ego driven for sure, but that was there. And then the other thing I didn't like is that I just felt like yeah, actually, maybe most of it had to do with this. Yeah, maybe that was it. Yeah, I think even as a full stack web developer, there should still be tests, but I don't think it's that your job is 100% testing. The removal is testing and quality control really shows in Windows. They didn't remove testing. They shifted the role to being part of the development job. Also, yeah, because Windows on its own, back when I was working there, I don't remember the exact number, but let's say it was like 6,000 employees or something. It was a lot of people working on one product. And I don't know what changes exactly were made internally, but I know they shifted focuses almost completely from being a software company to being like a hardware and services company. And I don't know if they're still pursuing that track, but that can cause a lot of those processes to change too. You still have a full stack to make sure it ties in correctly. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Had an intern in a software company. It told us 3 interns that 2 out of 3 were hired at end of intern. Turns out they got bought out by another company and didn't hire any of us. Yeah, I gotta say the one thing that's tough here is that they got bought out, and at that point, their promise doesn't really mean anything. A lot of pretty much every terms of service that you see say, or privacy policy even, will say something like, "We will share your data with XYZ. Oh, and also if we get bought out, then they get all of your data too." And they almost always have a clause like that. And same thing with terms of service of like, yeah, well, we can promise these things, but if someone buys us out, we can't promise them necessarily. So it's always really tough to do that because even if you had gotten the jobs, they might have still just fired you afterward. Have you seen those resume websites that do that self-coding thing? I'm not totally sure what you're talking about. Maybe you mean like typing out the resume or something as you scroll down. I've seen probably something similar at least. 1 month free, went to unsubscribe, got a great deal. Wow. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to write this down. Maybe I should give it a shot. Or websites without writing any tests. Do write tests now, and in some situations you don't have time to build reliable systems. Yeah, and this is what I feel like I've gotten flack from this almost for on stream, where I was working on large pieces of software on stream, and people were like, "Oh, where are the tests for that?" And I would say things like, "Well, look, testing isn't going to matter if I never end up making any money from this software, so that then the software won't exist anymore." You know, like I think so much of development boils down to just priorities. That you should probably design before you prototype. You should probably prototype before you code. You should probably test even before you code or test after you've coded. Just at some point you should be testing. But if you don't have any time for any of that, you have like 6 hours to write this thing, then you write the thing. You've got constraints and you have to work within those constraints. Thank you for resubbing. I actually did not see the name. Let me see if I can scroll down really fast. Dungus, yeah, thank you. All right, yeah. As you can see, I'm like 10 minutes delayed in chat now. Let me try to skim a little bit faster. Hi, future me. Yes. Let's see. What salary am I looking for? So I'm really only open for remote work right now, but I think the salary I'm looking for is a little too high. So for part time, I was actually looking for like 100K plus. And for full time, if I were to do this, it'd be like 200K plus. So I'm asking for a lot of money. Every source just says do this command and then also do that. I do that. Follow whatever someone else is doing. Well, Couch, maybe then it's a good idea to try to understand exactly why they're saying what they're saying. Sometimes by dissecting it, you can figure out what they should have done. Because this is where I remember if I was reading documentation 5 years ago, I'd be like, this is the documentation. It's the source of truth for this thing. So it can't possibly be wrong. And then you saw me reading documentation yesterday where I think, oh yeah, that's a bug, or there's a typo, or there's whatever. There's some like issue. They should have presented this differently. And it's because everything's written by people and people make mistakes. By testing for a long time, I coded any explicit tests. Couldn't figure them beforehand. Yeah. Keep looking. Going for a bachelor's degree in CS. Do you think it's necessary to make a few projects to increase the chance you get employed? Excuse me. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea for many reasons, though. I don't think it's just to increase your opportunity of getting employed, although it will, and it'll do it in many ways. It'll increase your skills. It will probably be fun. It will probably also increase your chance of being employed. And the way it'll kind of help here too, not only by increasing your skills, is by giving like proof that you can do what you say you can. And I think that's important because a resume is not proof of anything. A resume is a bunch of words on paper that say, yeah, I know these skills. I don't know how much I know the skills. I can't prove that I know the skills, but I know them. Did I take a look at the developer survey from a few days ago? I hadn't, no. I looked at past years, but I didn't look at the most recent one. I assumed it was kind of more of the same, and I didn't actually verify that. What tools do you use to make notes while you learn? I've got a lot of this in the programs command if you type it, but in general, it's OneNote, Google Docs, To-Do Plus for Visual Studio Code, and yeah, that's it. It's mostly OneNote. That's the fourth program you see open here. Is it sustainable? Like, does the revenue cover the server cost? No, I turned off all payments in Botland. So Botland cannot make money right now. It's not possible. Like, you can't spend money in the game. So the server costs are also very high, and I need to cut that down at some point. Would you say the lack of ownership when being a software quality engineer is more of how the team and company works? No, I don't think so. I think it's part of just being a tester. Like for me, ownership is I wrote the code, I came up with the code, I designed the code, and then I'm responsible for maintaining that code. And that to me is ownership. So that when I say, hey, Windows, like I made this program or something like that, a tester can't ever do that. A tester can point to this and say, hey, when you click this button and then right click this, it doesn't crash. It's like, okay, well, that's good, I guess. That's kind of how I felt about that. Keep scrolling down. Yeah, I'm more caught up now. I'm only like 2-3 minutes behind. Okay. Thoughts on CIS? I don't know what CIS is, but I think it's going to be the same thing, Giraffe, that I've been saying about the other degrees, is that I would need to know what the degree actually means. And even then, I don't know how much it matters. I assume it's like computer information systems. And yeah, I don't know what that means though. Credentials shouldn't be ignored. I I think they only matter when they're your most recent credential. So let's say you got a 4-year degree and you're looking for a job. Yeah, at that point, the degree matters because that's what you were just doing for the last 4 years, right? Before that, you were probably in high school and nobody really cares for a computer science degree what you did in high school. So, but then, yeah, let's say you're, 10 years of experience, 20 years of experience. If someone's asking you about, hey, what was your degree? At that point, I think it's almost completely irrelevant. Unless it was a degree in, like I said, you're trying to work for NASA and you got a physics degree or something. That might be relevant. I don't know. But in general, I think it's gonna be like, what did you actually work on? What have you been doing? I'll just say other than good luck for everything in your search and future live streams. Been here for a few years now. Thank you, Ryu. Yeah. Yeah, I still am a believer in Adam Learns. and that it could eventually succeed, but that it'll take time to do, and that I need to figure out where I'm going to find that time. Tester can show off an end-to-end software they designed? No. If they designed it, yeah, but typically they're not the ones designing it. Unless you mean test software they designed, in which case that's typically not usually public. Yeah. I started speedrunning chat, yeah. Yeah, so it being computer information system, that's what I thought, but I don't know what that means exactly. Have you had to touch Botland at all in recent months to keep it running? No, it's been just completely just on its own. It's been up and running. I don't think there have been any problems. I wonder, oh yeah, I don't think anything has happened. In fact, I have something somewhere that tells me it's uptime. I don't know where that is though, but it's probably a very long time now. Yeah, hello from the present. We finally made it. Yeah, so I think that the next week or two is going to be a little weird for the stream because I don't know what I'm doing. I need to figure out what I'm doing. How many people do you have playing in the last month? More or less? I almost certainly would guess that it'd be less. But I don't really track this stuff anymore. So I have an API that I can call into, and it'll tell me these stats. So in the last hour, how many people signed up? In the last day, how many people signed up? In the last week? And you can see the number of returning users. So this, I think, at its all-time high was like 400 or something, and now it's down to 68. I think the lowest I've seen so far is in the 60s. And you can see some people are still signing up. I don't know where they're coming from. I'm not even looking into this. I don't plan on ever maintaining this again. You know, the last week 300 logins. That's not bad. I mean, people are playing the game. It's just I don't think there's any point in keeping it up and running. I still will. Yeah, at some point, I think I should just tear it down. In fact, I got a message from a code signing certificate company saying that my certificate's going to expire. I think that certificate was for the Windows Steam build. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was. And I don't know what's going to happen when that expires. I don't want to pay for it again. So do I just take the Steam build down, or does it? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work. But if I had to take the Steam build down, I would probably greatly consider just like tearing the whole game down. Imagine setting your Windows accent color to vibrant green. I don't know why I haven't set to that color. I just got used to it. And do what you got to do. Yeah, what I need to do is figure out the next steps. And I think it looks like just applying to jobs. And I think I got to spend some time doing that this weekend. Actually, maybe the first step is just getting energy again. Just spending time doing nothing, taking some guilt-free vacation. Just came back and found the Botland page. What's going on? Oh, I was just responding to Zayuka asking how many people have been playing. Has it been more or less? Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep it up for the sake of the portfolio sedated. That's 100% there. I think that's a good idea to do. The thing is, I don't know how many people are going to look at this and actually consume any part of it and figure out what it's about. To figure that out. So I guess I see chat kind of winding down right now. I know I haven't been online for too long. I will still chat with anyone who's here for a little bit, but I will say this: as long as we're looks like kind of wrapping up a bit. For one, if any of you are interested in any courses that I have taught, I have 3. And 2 is if you guys do know about some job opportunities and want to send them my way. I know I'm asking for a ton of money, but yeah, you can reach out to me on Discord. I'm so good at marketing, everybody. Look at this. Look at that great sales pitch. I told you a lot about the product. Gonna go watch VOD tonight. All right, take care, Joel. Yeah. Planning to buy the dev efficiency course. I gotta say, I've heard the most feedback from that. I think it is definitely the best selling course. And I think it provides a lot of value, but it provides general value, which the other courses don't. The other courses provide like Godot specific value and Firebase specific value. Afraid that 30K from the Spanish government won't cut it. Yeah, I tried looking at contractor work. I I kind of changed ideas halfway through that maybe I shouldn't pursue part-time work at all. Maybe it should be full-time work. But when I was pursuing part-time work, I figured part-time contract work isn't stable enough. So I keep working on my computer if I get a new job. Oh, like this computer that I'm streaming from? I don't actually know how that would work. Because some remote companies will give you a laptop. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Full-time remote is pretty much part-time. This is what a lot of people have been saying, and also kind of tongue-in-cheek, although they can't express a kappa in real life. I I've been told, like, look, why don't you just get a full-time job and just work at it part-time, and you'd probably be able to do a full-time amount of deliverables anyway. And I said, if the company doesn't know that I want to do that ahead of time, then that's kind of underhanded, right? Then the other thing too is if it's part-time and the company sees me streaming at like 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, then that's fine because they would know that, oh, he probably got his work done, right? If it's full time and a company sees me streaming at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, they're probably like, what's going on here? +1 sale. Did you just buy a course, Pygon? If so, thanks. Or were you talking about who's potentially buying it? Wouldn't end well in future prospects would be affected by that? Yeah, I don't think it would end well. I mean, I guess it all depends on how you deliver. Doesn't appear to have gone through. Oh, you need to refresh the page, Pygon, if you just purchased it. That's something I just haven't fixed yet. Although it should have popped up a dialogue, I think. Alternatively, it could be the payment processor just being a little bit delayed. So work from 4 a.m. to noon. Problem solved. LED glasses. Imagine if they could tell your mood just by reading all the indicators that humans should normally be able to read. So now other people see green and they're like, oh, he's happy. Okay, cool. Did I do any marketing on my site? I did. I did some ads that I ran, and yeah, actually that's about it. And I did some features for marketing, but I didn't really go all in on it. I really needed to spend more money, and it was just hard to justify. And then the job search started. You have a pitch for why you think you're worth it? Just asking for the sake of it. I think it all kind of depends on the company I'm talking to. And I'm so bad at marketing myself that no, I don't think I have a pitch. And this is why I need to take time off because I don't think I can convince anyone of anything right now. I think I'm just too burned out. So I probably won't stream tomorrow, and I'll probably try to treat it like it's just a day off, Because for the last 2.5 months or so, I worked almost every weekend. I worked almost every evening. And I was trying to like really make Adam Learns into as big a thing as I could make it in a short amount of time. And now I'm just like, okay, time to shut off my brain. Time to just stuff cookies into my face all day. Would you rather overmarket content that's a bit lacking or create a ton of quality content and have it market itself? My entire psyche is steered toward the second one. And I feel like I have the skills to do this. I think I have marketing abilities. I could probably talk about my courses differently. It's just something prevents me from doing that, and I don't know what it is. So yeah, I'd rather just create quality content and that's it. That's what I've been trying to do with the courses. I have an IT and I have an in at this company, so I could send a good word about you. Oh yeah, I'll write that down, Avery. I think I had Triplebyte written down. Yeah. Do a course on how to take time off. I just turn on the camera and walk away from the screen. Yeah. What about if you made a 5-minute highlight reel of your most proud moments where you conquered new technology while doing Adam Learns, put at the top of one of your reference pages? Etienne, that's one of the things that I've been considering is what if I did a video portfolio instead of a text portfolio? And I'm like, here's all the stuff I worked on. I think that's not a bad idea. Just highlight my projects and what they consisted of. Yeah. I'll give you a point. It's good content is testing JavaScript by the Kent guy. Yeah, Kent Dodds. I said, feel for Botland, you made a quality game with a ton of content first, but for Adam Learns, you want to market off the bat with a few lessons. But I still think the few lessons are quality content. I think your original thing was, okay. I think I see what you're saying now. when you said that's a bit lacking, I thought you meant that's a bit lacking in quality. I feel like the quality is there for what I've done, but that the quantity isn't there, and that the site is missing some features. Yeah, so the mindset shift, yes, that was definitely okay. I see what you're getting at. Yeah, that was definitely due to focusing on money. And a lot of the reason why I think I told you guys, even with the FAQ, that there was this question of like, what are the monetary goals of the show? So this came from talking to my wife about like, okay, what is good? How should we proceed? Because my wife has a certain idea of how we live our lives based on how things were going when we met. And yeah, when you take 5 years off and you basically say like, I don't need the money, guys. Yeah, that changes things. So that was what caused the mindset shift. And I don't think any of that was bad or that was forced or anything. I think I just started focusing on it more. Thinking about development efficiency course for a bit because I've started doing text replacement. Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, this is something that I actually did even when I'm writing blog posts. So I have this MDX thing, and now I can say something like, okay, coding for fun. And I say something like, you should check out, and I needed a link here. And so I made a snippet that is text link. So I could say, you should check out this site. And then I hit tab and I go over to here and I type in the URL and maybe it's this. And then I tab again and I say, okay, this actually isn't external. And I tab again at the end. And so cool. I just set this whole thing up without needing to type out every single time, like text link. Was it href? Did I need to type it as link? Is it this? And I tab over to here and like is external. So automate more what you're doing. I think it helps out. Mention how many times you can go to a local company. What are the main reasons you don't want to do that? The way I've always I've been answering this question is like, I'm so early into this process that I'm purposely being picky. So if there is some like unicorn job out there that's exactly what I want to try to find that first, then broaden until I'm finally just pursuing like local jobs. Am I thinking about working for a bigger company? I do not know. Yeah, I really haven't taken that step back and considered what's best for me right now. I just spammed out a bunch of resumes at jobs that I look like I could do well at because I was only focusing on like, could I make money? And I think I need to stop and think. Kind of hard turning off the computer and walking out from it is only me. You mean it's hard not being at your computer like 24/7? Because I think that turns into more about building self-control. I think there are ways to help you build that. Hey, 3D Extended. If you didn't need to earn money, what project would you decide to do just for the sake of it? I have a bunch of game ideas I'd probably try out. One thing that I really don't like is trying to turn things into products, because then I'm not just making what I want to make. I recognize it as a reality. You have to do that if you're considering making a living off this stuff. You don't just hope that what you like ends up being something that the world likes. And there are lots of ways to narrow that down, and there are lots of ways to get there quicker. So I think if I just didn't need to earn money at all, I had like $10 million, I would probably just start like tinkering around with the games and technologies and just do what I can. I'd probably also do Adam Learns, but I'd give the content for free. Yeah. Thought I was using your courses in Skillshare. Is Skillshare like Udemy? Because if it's like Udemy, then I think yeah. I looked into this site. So I posted on Udemy as kind of a way to answer people's questions where they say like, hey, you could get a bigger audience that way. I don't think Udemy's ever going to result in a sale for me. And maybe it's just because of how Udemy does things, but they've got reviews and ratings, and mine has 0 reviews and 0 ratings. And I don't think it'll ever get those reviews when it's not like a bleeding edge course. The other ones already exist. Looking to find a job as a senior dev. Have you discussed the salary you're looking for? Honestly, I wouldn't mind getting a job as a junior developer and just working half the time. But yeah, in general, yes, I'd be looking for a job as a senior dev, and the salary that I'd be looking for kind of depends on whether it's part time or full time. But in general, it's a large amount. And how do you recover from burnout? I think the number one step is always vacation. So number one, vacation, and it's got to be guilt free. It's got to be something where you're not like, I started working for 2 hours and I just can't do it anymore. And so you take the rest of the day off. It's got to be something where you actually like plan it. And then number two is, I guess, by just analyzing what's causing it. So if it's the job, if it's management, if it's programming in general, I think you gotta try to steer away from whatever stimulus that is, and that can be tough because if it's management or something, you could actually be on a different team. If it's programming, yeah, what do you do? Are links just part of Markdown? So they are, except for the links that I wanted had to be styled a certain way. Like the links in my blog post. Let me see this. Yeah, are like this, and when you hover over them, they have a certain style. And granted, I could put that into CSS almost certainly, but I'm using something that lets me use React components. So I figured I'd just use my React component directly. But yeah, I could probably just change the styles. I'm taking more notes since I started watching. Now I just do MD link. Yeah, it's nice, right? I always wonder what little things that I do will get picked up, and then eventually I'll encounter them in the wild. So, like, you ended up using a backtick as well, which is what I use. That's not something I would ever take claim over, but something I might take claim over is like the word testeroni or me typing out Wilo for where I left off. If I ever saw this appear in someone else's code or notes, I'd be like, okay, I strongly think that could have been due to me. Is there any value in exposing some of your more popular courses to course hosting sites and have people find more content? Yeah, this kind of goes back to the question about that Zidius was asking. Whoops, I need to click that. About have you thought about posting on Skillshare? And yeah, I've got the course on Udemy. I don't think it'll sell. I don't think if I put any of my other courses on, that it would necessarily do all that well either. And yeah, maybe it's just a marketing thing. Hey, Walter and Meisel, welcome back. So you're getting a fireplace. Walter with great suggestions. Fury, if you're looking for age, you might be looking for the Adams age command. But if you're looking for your account age, I think only I can do that. And I think, oh, whoops, it's got to not have an @ sign in it. There we go. Yeah, I don't know if you're looking for your own account age or for my age, but there are both of them. What did I make my website in? The stack was React, Tailwind CSS, Next.js, and Firebase. Yeah, this is really tough, Mac Attack. I feel like someone's always waiting on me and I can never truly relax. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people get in this situation where they are the only real person at their job who does a particular thing. And even if you're a developer working amongst 10 other developers, you still might be the only person who knows your part of the stack. And so when you go on vacation, work is just piling up while you're on vacation because you're the only one who can handle it. Why not consider stay frugal and go for fire? What is fire? Am I interested in working for a FANG company? Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I'm not really. Thing is, right now is my passion is still with Adam Learns. So that's part of this mental shift I think I need to do is figure out how do I become excited about really any job? Because the way I'm pursuing this is purely pragmatically of can I provide value? Will I get money for it? Can I still do what I want to do? And at that point, it's actually kind of freeing not to have to consider, is this the dream job for me? It's mostly like, well, do they use technologies that I could learn or that I already know? And that's been kind of nice. But then when a company is like, so do you want to work for us? And I'm like, you're giving me money and I am able to provide value to you. That doesn't sound very good. You get a job in X years if you want to switch. Yeah, I think this is the writing is on the wall for some developers. This is where I wonder if you get to a certain level of seniority, do you just have to take pay cuts basically to still get more work? I don't know. You know, working from home, struggling with lack of feedback, connect with my boss once a week. Yeah, this is really brutal. I had that. I was in a position like that a while ago, but it was only for 3 months. I was working remotely. I was the only developer. I went insane. I think Twitch really helps for that. No, Fafi, please don't. Like, I want it to be organic traffic so I can find out if this is working. I don't want it to be like people who already knew me, just bought the course, clicked 5 stars, typed out a fake review. I don't think that really helps because then if other people find that the course is not good, then You basically wasted your money. So if you want to buy the course, by all means, go for it. But yeah, you definitely don't need to do it like for me. I want it to be that you wanted value from the course. They are still suggestions. You're right. So now the question is any suggestion helpful? PEBN. That's the bus factor? I think I missed the context. Oh, financially independent, retire early. Eat rice and stay home. Interesting. Anyway, so this is what's tough, right? This comes down to like what have my wife and I agreed on, and for me, if I were not married, to be financially independent means something different from when I'm married to be financially independent. And I don't want to go into too much more than just that. So let's just say it's not really that doable. Recommend you to the YC network. You can DM if you're actually interested. Y Combinator, you mean? I'm always hesitant about getting into that network. I don't know why. There was a job I wanted to apply to that I had to make my resume through there, and it said you just had to make this public to every other Y Combinator company. And I wasn't comfortable with that, so I actually didn't apply through there. But yeah, I still haven't figured out why. But anyway, thank you, Avery. I do appreciate the offer, and I wrote it down. Yeah, sorry. So the age command is not open to everybody. If you click your own name in Twitch, it should just tell you what your account age is, and yours in this case is 2012. I know I'm not on Twitch right now. I'm on Yada. It's actually quite the proposition if you have the authority. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, wait. Are you suggesting the... Oh, maybe I misinterpreted. Maybe you were suggesting it as like you can get funding for Adam Learns. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Or maybe I had thought of that. Actually, this is something I was wondering about too. They take like 7% equity, right? Which, granted, I recognize if 7% equity in a product that would have failed without the funding is better than 0% equity in a product that fails because you don't have funding. I thought you were just saying like finding jobs at YC companies. I took 3 days holiday, didn't want to finish work, just kind of the swing of things and quotas flowing. Wait, you're saying you did this on your vacation, One Punch? Some streamers make a YouTube channel and post highlights from their streams on there. Do you have something like that, or considering something like that? So I have a YouTube channel, and on it are the public videos from what I make for the courses. I probably should be engaging this a little bit more. Let me mute this. So there are like the previews for the courses. I don't know what else I could necessarily do here, but maybe there is something more. Uh, right now, I'm definitely not firing on all cylinders. I need to take a step back, figure out what's going on, and if let's say I know this will never happen. This is all for hypothetical. Let's say like $1 million landed on my lap, and I was like, okay, cool. I could just keep working on this. Then yes, I would definitely be pursuing like, okay, how can I grow YouTube? How can I grow courses? Yeah. Can I send a link to Udemy? I actually don't even know what it is. And the last time I had to find this was difficult. Maybe I put it in the Udemy command. Oops. I don't know how to get there. You get a link to this thing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I seem to not be motivated by money, so I just keep doing what you're doing. Take good breaks. No, so this is what I was saying is like I don't want to get ultra personal here. My wife and I have agreed to certain things, and like making money is part of that. So I'm not motivated by it, but I sort of have to be motivated by it. And a company has a condition of employment that leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. This is a job. I enjoy what I do. Yeah, this is something that I struggle with because I think I would always just be honest with the company and say, look, this is a job. Like, I'm not going to do worse work because I see it as a job, but it's a job. I think the only company I was ever excited to apply to was Blizzard years ago. when they weren't doing anything controversial and weren't owned by Activision. Is the management term the issue to knowledge being centered on one person? Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, I've heard of this. Okay. I didn't know it as bus factor, but yeah, if this person were removed from the project, what would it mean? Yeah, I'll take a look at it, Alex. Saying finding jobs at YC companies. I see. All right, yeah, I'll write it down. Avery, thank you. Really like to show your hands in YouTube thumbnails. I just do whatever's natural. I guess I gesture a lot. Thought about opening a Patreon. Yeah, I had one. I actually just shut it down. Yeah. This is probably the course. Thank you, Nuffly. I should just make a command for this. Oh, it's just gonna start playing. Mute. Yeah. Make a command for this. Okay. You consider working at a consulting firm for a year? I'm doing that. I really like it. I haven't too much, no, and I probably need to consider it more. This is what I was saying is a lot of people have been asking me questions for the last few months, even before I even started looking for a job, saying, hey, Adam, when you do look for a job, what are you going to try to find? And I said, I will cross that bridge when I come to it. And now the bridge is there, and I'm just staring at it. So that's why I'm saying I'm burned out. I need to think about this some more. Plan to leave my job in a few weeks and work on my ideas for a couple of years. Make some videos for YouTube. After all your experience, would you recommend? There are a lot of challenging parts to consider here. You've been in the industry for long enough where you probably know what the risks are. I don't know exactly what you're trying to do though. But yeah, building something up from scratch is very difficult. So it's hard to give you specific advice. Even growing a YouTube channel, like, it's not easy. But yeah, if you have any specific questions, feel free to ask. And if I don't get to them here, feel free to message me on Discord. I've had good experience working from home full time. Feel more focused and write code more efficient. Yeah, I think this is what I've done for the last 5 years is I've worked from home. Although the level of distractions has been like 10x what probably any other developer experiences because of Twitch. So that's I do feel like there's still pressure sometimes, but it's a very different kind of pressure. I wouldn't say she's pressuring me. Again, this is where I don't want to get like super personal here. Imagine marrying someone and then they take 5 years off of making good money, and you're like, when is this going to come to an end? Like, I love my wife. I totally get where she's coming from with all this stuff, and I didn't ever want it to be this way. I wanted it to be that I was successful at what I did, monetarily successful. No, we don't have a baby coming up now. What was my position at Microsoft? I was a software development engineering test at Windows Security in Metalstorm. Thought about courses and videos on YouTube about core concepts of CS, similar to Daniel Shipman's channel. I I could do something like that. I think those are basically like free courses. I'll have to write it down as a consideration. Add free micro courses as a consideration. So basically, I do the same style as Adam Learns, but without the amount of time that typically goes into one. It would just be an advertisement for myself. This is something I had just gotten into. So the blog post, the entire point was they will serve as advertisements for my courses while providing value to people. And that's what a micro course could do on YouTube. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. And I'll definitely write that down. Set up a plan to, I can't scroll up. It happens every once in a while. I don't know what fixes it either. Come on, let me scroll up. I really can't do it. Wow. Maybe if I type another message, there we go. Plan to minimize the amount of corporate work you have to do and then get back to your passion. That's what I was that's what I was thinking of doing. That's why I wanted to pursue something that was part-time. It may still be a good idea to do that. What kind of games do I like to play for fun? I like a lot of different kinds of games, but the games I'm playing right now are Terraria and Cube World. Did I advertise it on YouTube? I never made a video for that, no. Yeah. I need to do more of that. Hey, trust me. Yeah. 5 years is incredibly generous. Yeah, I know. And that's why I say, like, I don't feel like my hand is being forced or something. I think this is the natural progression of things. And it's a shame that I spent the time the way that I did, because if I knew for certain that, hey, okay, this is going to be like this amount of time, then Botland would have needed to have changed. Although I think it would be hard to convince myself. A lot happened in that time. Do you think it's worth it for a fresh junior dev to stay at a first position for at least a full year, even though it's not desired, just for credibility? I think that a year for a junior dev is not so long to get stuck into a certain track. How long have you been there already? Or is this just a general question? Because I think like each company is going to be a little bit different, and generally there's going to be like a burning bridge amount of time. So if you get hired at a job and you quit within 3 days, you probably burnt that bridge. If you get hired at a job and you work there for about 6 months, they're probably not happy about it, but you're probably not sending a very strong message. And if you work there for a year, yeah, sure, they're probably like, okay, well, we got something. Hey, Baron son, and thanks, MK. Master top job easy. I mean, your skills are way up. Yeah, but it's all about finding the right company and then convincing them of that. And I am finding it very, very difficult to market myself right now. So I had a call the other day for a developer advocate position that was part-time. And I basically convinced the guy on the phone that I cannot do this job. And that's what was the indicator for me that, I'm doing something wrong if I'm saying that. And like, it's not like it accidentally happened. I was saying, hey, here's what I think the risks are of hiring me. And I laid everything out. And I think that is where being honest is harmful to my future. It's a good fit for you. Does it satisfy you to learn new things? Yeah, that's where the responsibility scares me of what happens if I get a client and I do something and they're not happy with the work. I don't actually know what happens in those cases. What would you do different if you were to start Adam Learns all over again? Not too much. I mean, Adam Learns is so new that we're not looking back at 5 years of work or anything. We're looking back. I started it pretty much like late February. So in the last couple of months, pretty much, like what would I have done differently? I mean, I probably wouldn't have ever tried monetizing a Twitch stream or Patreon. I haven't used Magento now. Ronald kind of forced me to only working 60%, like it way more. Yeah, especially if you've got a little bit more financial freedom. I think having the time to do what you want is so much more important than having the money to do what you want. That's not true for everybody. I know that's coming from like it sounds like a very privileged position. It is for sure. But yeah, at a certain point, having infinite money doesn't really do anything for you. Like if you're making $200,000 a year, let's say, making $600,000 a year isn't going to drastically change your lifestyle. There are probably some things that would change. You might get a bigger house. You might get a better car. You might like eat prepared meals every single day. But at some point, you're going to be like, I want more time in my day than I want more money. For Adam, I never used the word testosterone. Yeah, Bob, I think a lot of people, there does seem to be enjoyment in these streams. And that's why I figured, look, I don't think I can do work myself today, but I think we can at least have a stream that's helpful and can all chat about stuff. Was that chat client? Yeah, thanks TS, it's Yada. And by the way, thanks TS for always linking this stuff in. I assume you consider the multi 5 to 10 video, 5 to 10 minute course, offer the first one free. That's kind of what I'm doing with my courses so far. The Godot course is 5 videos and the first one is free. They're just not 5 to 10 minutes. They're all like half an hour long. And yeah, pre-chunka. So 6 months. You know, how much do you trust your manager? Because if you trust your manager, you could always ask, listen, like, this isn't exactly what I want to be doing. What could we work on together? And maybe it's, would you be okay with me leaving? Could we start a transition plan? And that's only if you trust your manager. If you don't trust your manager, that can be shooting yourself in the foot. But if you're planning on leaving anyway, it might not be so bad. Do you want to work? You sound like you're trying to rationalize not going back to work. I want to make money and I want to spend. So what I want to do is I want to make this successful. And the way that I see that path working is it's make money and then find time and then work on elements. That's what I want to do. And that's what I was saying. I know this is where my passion lies. And so switching out of this mindset is incredibly difficult because that's what I want to be doing right now. And I know that I likely can't. And so I've been trying to grapple with that idea of if I pursue full-time work, what does that mean? It almost certainly means that all this stuff just like completely falls by the wayside. And then that's it. You're interviewing, I think it's apparent that you don't really want to be doing this. Yeah, I think so too. And that's why I think I got to take a break. I'm going to definitely write this down because I think you guys are definitely seeing that. One of the things I was talking to my wife yesterday about this, and she's like, "This sounds like a midlife crisis." I'm like, "That's what the stream said." So I'm gonna give out some points. Let's go there and there. Just move on to the next client. Yeah, I think I do need to sell myself a little bit better. And I think opening up to others would make it die. And the reason why is because I don't think you'd have a reason to go to this site over any of the existing ones. Like the prices would be higher. There wouldn't be as many courses. There wouldn't be as much of a trust factor. And that's what I thought was one of the benefits of having it just be me at first is you'd understand this is the quality level that I should get, and getting any of these courses will give me that quality level. That's what I was hoping for. And I think it has legs. I just don't think I have stretched those legs as far as I could. I hate potato pie. What suggestion would you give to a 19-year-old with ideas and the ability to code? With school and work going on, would you suggest trying to prioritize the idea over school? This could go any number of ways, right? You could be the next like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, and if I'm like, hey, you should stay in school, then now you never turn into that. And if I say, hey, you should quit school and focus on your idea, and then it turns out now you have no prospects after a year or two, like I can only say so much, and I will give you my input here. As much as you can, I would try to figure out where you rank risk taking on your list. So if you like having a low amount of risk, then I would say you need to focus on school and work. If you like having a slightly higher amount of risk, but not a ton, then you could say, okay, well, take a little bit of time from school and work. Maybe you don't put as much time into your homework. Maybe you purposely get a C in a class that you could have gotten an A in. These are things to consider, right? Like they're not necessarily suggestions. I'm not saying you should do this, but yeah, it's very hard to balance three things at once. So yeah, I think my overall suggestion is do try to find some time for it and do it in a way you're comfortable with. That sounds like very pithy advice. But yeah, I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. Yeah, I always love the expression, it doesn't help to be the richest person in the graveyard. So many people die with their money. And then it's like, well, I do have all the money. And one good reason is, well, I wanted it for my family, and now the family gets it. Although still, if you're dying with it, that means the family didn't have it until you died. And I don't say this in a disrespectful way. I don't say that people should be thinking differently. It's your life. You should do what you want. But yeah, for me, if I'm a millionaire and then I die, then I feel like, what was the point? Like, was I living life to the fullest? Was I making enough bad puns in my time on Earth? That's what this life is really about. It's bad puns. I would take it up with some manager. In my case, all managers have worked as devs for a long time, so they know all the pitfalls. Yeah. Yeah, this is something I just never had any insight into, was what happens in those cases. So yeah, it does sound like, I guess you won't ever do anything perfectly, because at some point they'll need to extend it and you're just fulfilling a contract, I guess. Yeah, I should dip my feet in those waters. Don't worry about the client not happy on first deliver. They'll say they don't like this or that. You need to be a bit of a slave and fix it. Worse, you better fix. Oh, the better you hit the first time, the better it is. Yeah, I see. Well, thank you, Thoros, for being here. Never thought someone else was. I've commented on this before, Mike MCS, that we have both of you here, MCS Mike and Mike MCS, and look, just three messages apart. Well, 2 messages apart. Is it easy to find freelance jobs at back end dev? They usually require front end skills. There are a lot of different job sites that I've listed over the last few days, and I think maybe one of those might be able to help you because I can't answer this question directly, but this site probably could. So I'll link you to this. It's a Google Doc that I made, and at the top of it are a bunch of just job posting sites. Hey, Batman. Go back to working full time, part time, and then a percentage of your income will be dedicated to growing your platform. Yeah, so, okay, here's the big problem with this. I was doing this in 2015. 2015, I had a full time job. I had Botland as a part time job. This was pre streaming days. And then I was, of course, married. I could not balance these three things. And so I'm not willing to give up on my marriage at all. So this gets bumped up the list, which means that this drops off the list. And so it turns into full-time job and marriage. And that's why I feel like I'm a little stuck, because I don't have the passion right now to go pursue a full-time job with the kind of zeal that I think you need to do well. I don't have the opportunities necessarily to pursue part-time work, and I don't want to give up on some of the things that I already have. So that's where I was saying I need to take a step back. I need to think about what's important to me. How do I pursue those things? And yeah, how much risk am I willing to take on? How much work am I willing to do? How close to being burnt out 24/7 can I get without actually burning out? Are the points you give people the same points it takes to modify an emote? No, they're different. Although you have spent quite a lot of those. It's like 40K so far today, right? Have you considered making less in a career outside of tech? First time watcher, I can feel what you're saying here. Hey, Liquid. No, I haven't actually. I think a career in tech is what I'm pretty much made for. So I think almost all of my skills align toward this. And the only other careers I would consider, thanks Dungus, thanks for the bits. The only other careers I would consider is something in music, which I think that ship has sailed. I don't have the kind of skill to do this, but maybe like, I don't know, 15 years ago, I might have been able to consider that. And on that same note, this is always going to come off the wrong way, but comedy, it's always been something I've been interested in. And again, had I started working toward it 15 years ago, maybe I could have had a career. But since those ships have sailed, it's tech all the way. And then in tech, what could it be? And yeah, that could be practically anything. Well, so the thing is, the Who Really Wants to Work, Adam Learns has been a ton of work, like just a boatload of work. Let me just keep using ships in every analogy that I can make. I think that I have never worked so hard in my life as what I did on Adam Learns. And yet it's work I wanted to do. Nice Zero, thanks for stopping. It's work that I've wanted to do, but it's definitely the hardest work I've ever done. Yeah. But I know I'm probably coming off like a big baby here. Like, hey, this guy wants everything in his life and he doesn't want to do anything for it. I hope it's not coming off like that. They institute all to help others build their tools to the point of revenue and then take a cut for periodic maintenance, slowly building a portfolio or residual income. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I guess I never really thought about that, having equity in other people's products. I think the problem that I usually run into is that jobs like that start as being equity positions and not start as being paid positions with equity. So typically you'll find someone who's hiring and they're like, okay, 6 months of work and you'll get 10% of the company. And I'm like, 6 months of work for 10% of a company that might fail is basically 6 months of work for free. When you click the gifts button in your chat client, does that only show up for you on your channel? So Yada lets you add custom actions. And yes, so this is something that's just for me, and it happens to type a command that my bot understands. So I could have a bunch of actions here, like say hey to this person, and it would just have like a hey guys and then your name if I wanted it to be. What I go to school for? I'm not actually sure. You said where did I go to school for? So if you're saying where did I go to school, I'm not willing to answer that question. But if you're saying what did I go to school for, it was for computer science. Wholly recommend not taking that particular option. If you exit college, do so on your terms. I think I missed enough of the context of this. Was this for the person who asks about managing school and work and their personal project? School will always be there, right? Yeah, I mean, school will always be there in the form that someone will always be willing to take your money to give you an education. But let's say you had scholarships built up. Let's say you feel too much social pressure by being 26 years old at an undergraduate degree. any number of things could happen there. And I'm not saying you should feel that pressure, but that happens to people, that they go back to school later in life than when you're supposed to go to school. And then they feel like, "Oh, I don't really belong." So yeah, I mean, school will always be there, but still shouldn't squander opportunities if you've got them now. Think of all the friends I have in some old rocking chair. Do you find yourself always trying to be efficient, lifestyle optimizations, etc.? I do to a point. I feel like I'm penny wise, pound foolish in these cases sometimes, where I'll optimize something and then just completely forego other things. Like, what's a good example of this? I'm trying to think of something around the house that I might do that's like the tiniest optimization. I don't know. Hey, Dr. Avavinik, do you do sports as a balance of work and sitting? What do you do? In coronavirus times, actually, it hasn't been anything. What I used to do is I would go to the gym 3 times a week, and I'd been doing that for years, and that had been working out great for me. And then coronavirus happened, and my gym closed, and now I don't know what to do. So I like lifting weights. I like having the mindless repetitiveness of it, and I can't really do that because we don't have any weights at home. So like I could go running, I could do stretches or something, and I just find that I'm not really doing that. But generally, yeah, that's how I offset sitting so much. I also, before I got this setup that I have, so I've got a, wait, what is the command, I think? Is it setup? There's something that links to a picture. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so let me show you guys this picture. So this is what my whole setup looked like before I got these like super bright lights that I have here, where if I turn them off, you can see what even just turning off one of these things does. Like this is a very dark room without these lights on. So the lights now are positioned roughly here in the picture. So if I were to raise the desk at all, they'd start to hit the lights. And so I stopped standing and I stopped working out. So I'm definitely not as healthy as I was, and I fully plan on getting back to that. But yeah, something full completed work to a client is a one-shot deal. Working with clients as the project progresses should reduce the chance of client not liking. Yeah, I think that's something I never really considered. I'm gonna write this down too. That yeah, I guess what I was worried about is that you have a contract of like, can you deliver this software? And you sign it, and now you find out, oh man, this is gonna be way more work than I thought, and I don't know. Had to be There's a lot of like little fears there. By the way, now I'm like 8 minutes behind on chat. Sorry about that. Full stack JS dev, no degree in CS, launched and built my own platform. I'm hesitant to apply to web dev jobs. No experience besides my own personal projects, 2 years. Yeah, I feel you, Bucky, because I feel kind of the same way. I've learned a lot of different technologies. I just did the same thing. I built my own site. I learned a stack that I did not fully know. I'm still learning new stuff, and yet I still feel like, oh, this project isn't exactly what I do. But in general, I would say, and this is like a do what I say and not what I do kind of thing, but I'm kind of struggling, is apply if you meet even half the requirements, even less than half the requirements sometimes. I mean, if you're like, look, I just did all this stuff, here's my portfolio, and I only know 20, 30% of your stack, that's still fine. You should still apply. Let them figure out if they want to hire you. Maybe find one on the lower end. That is possible. I'll twitch that, but I don't know how to do that without telling them my expectations up front, and it'll just sound like I'm a lazy person if I do that. Like, hey, I'd really like to just work 30 hours a week. Do you have something like that for me? See, I told one joke. One joke. Command not working, points help. Oh, I might have gotten rid of that. Let me look into that later. Nope. Look into the points help command. Did I get rid of it? Let me link this into there. Okay. Will I save this stream? Yeah. I'll save it. It'll be saved for 60 days. I think solution on working is accepting less than you want for a part-time and still work on this. Getting hard to find a part time for what you're looking for. Yeah, that's possible. Well, I mean, it's sort of possible. Also depends on what my wife wants. Yeah. Say hey guys to me. Hey, need. I think that's one of the hard things to pause in interviews and resume and say how much work has it really been. A lot of people look at it like a game done in a day and a site done in 10 minutes. Yeah, that's where I really think having this is going to be good. I think this is going to be one of the top things that I do, a video portfolio of like, let me show off this project. Let me just do a deep dive into like two things. You know what? That's actually what it should be. It should just be a deep dive into Botland and Atom Learns, and I should talk about all of the little parts of it and what it entailed. I think it's a good idea. What do I code mostly? So what I mostly do on this channel is I learn different technologies so that I can teach them on my site, which is atomlearns.com. And I only have 3 courses up so far. What I've been doing as of late has been floundering like a fish out of water. So I'm currently looking for jobs, and I don't know what that's going to mean for the stream and what it's going to mean for that site I just showed. So that's kind of where we are. But welcome. I should probably, oh no, the new command is actually correct. Okay. Any interest in doing university work, like teaching and research? I don't think so, because I feel like that's what Atom Learns is. But Atom Learns does it on my own terms, kind of. Ah, Pixarua. I mean, they're not really that far away from your age. Because if you're 25 and you just started school, then chances are there's a 7-year difference. I'm not saying you're not lonely or anything. I could definitely see even a 7-year gap being a difference, but it's not like you're 50 and going to school with 18-year-olds. I think that feels even more separating. But yeah, there's definitely pressure there. Yeah, keep replacing trash bags in the bottom of the can. Bingo. What about freelance or something? I mean, you can stream the projects, web dev for a client. Yeah, I could pursue that. Yeah, and I think I'm. There are things that happen that are sort of no one's fault. That just you have enough things happen in your life where you get set in a certain mindset, and this actually happens with bad things too, like racism or discrimination. But it also happens with good things sometimes, where maybe you're like, this is how I got success is by doing steps A, B, and C. And so you do steps A, B, and C, and you're like, okay, that time was successful. That time was successful. I have some like confirmation bias, so I ignored that time where it wasn't successful. So in your mind, those are the steps it takes to become successful. So for me, whenever I think of something like this, I always think, in my mind, I have not ever shown success at marketing. So if I were to pursue freelancing, contract work, I feel like there's a lot of marketing involved, and it hasn't worked for me in the past, so it doesn't seem like it's a route for me now. And I know that there's not a ton of marketing depending on how you go about it. Like if you find an agency to get the work for you. Hey, sad fella. How many hours did you work on average for your last full time job? I think it was 40 hours. Like I think the work life balance there was good, but I think that's what most employees there did. It's like a 40-hour job. If you start to eat brownies every day, no. You'd be easy updated. Yeah, I'll probably just change the text of that command. Yeah. Hey, Myrtlex, check the today command. That's always got it. Time for today. It's just a chat. That's the short answer. Probably already know it. I can't stress enough how much physical exercise affects my mental state. If you're feeling more negative now since you stopped working. Thing is, I'm feeling more negative now for like the last week or so. I don't think it's been because like I said, I was pretty set in my exercise routine for years and years, and then as of COVID, it had to stop. At least the way that I was doing it. So yeah, maybe I should consider doing some more exercise. I think the only thing I really can do is, well, no, I shouldn't limit myself. I was going to say we actually had a curfew right up until yesterday, where you couldn't even go outside after 5. I just still find that ridiculous, by the way. Crazy to me. But they did lift it. It was supposed to go on until Saturday, so now I could go running after work. Well, yeah, we don't have a treadmill, so the last few days, even if I'd wanted to go running, I couldn't. I already know. Can't show. Yeah. So just catching up. Want to say your streams motivated me to do stuff I 100% couldn't have done. Aw, Funky Monkey. Thank you. Yeah, that's very nice. I'm gonna copy paste this into my notepad. There, done. I'll forever have that. Should also note I'm working in the client team, so it's not like it's all on me. Yeah, I think that's another thing is even having some multiple layers of overlap here for the responsibility, I think can take a lot of pressure off the plate. Hey, Apollo. Exercise so hard, procrastinating and going for a run, hard being accountable. Okay, Zeridu, what if I banned you from chat until you send me a Discord message saying you've gone on a run? Would that work? And thank you too, Bucky. Not always also a ramp up period. Yeah, you could just kind of smoothly transition into it, I suppose. What are my thoughts on an online portfolio? As opposed to what? As opposed to no portfolio? Or as opposed to like a physical portfolio? Because as opposed to no portfolio, I think you should have a portfolio. I think that's really good. As opposed to, I guess, physical, you probably wouldn't be talking about that unless you were in like art or architecture or something. But yeah, I definitely think you should do it. I'm copying this too. No one can stop me. And by the way, thank you. I'm like super scrolled up in chat. So Salman, thanks for subbing. Okay, let me keep going. I'll try to skim a little bit faster. Ensuring you to do the required research into a project and accept the ones you're confident about the size. Yeah. I think that is really important. Otherwise, you will sign a contract for something you can't deliver on. You said you were a bit nervous on being in a job where you can't perform well. Are you worried you can't learn fast the new material? I think you've proven you can learn fast. I don't actually know where that nervousness is coming from completely, but it's not about learning. I'm pretty confident in my abilities as a developer, as someone who can learn, as someone who can communicate, and I feel like I can do a lot of the process of engineering. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, that's what the last week has been about, is figuring out what's causing it. Just lie and say you have a kid. I love the idea. Yeah, that's a great one. Really hard for me to apply. Try to apply on personal projects. Oh, are you saying without the formal education experience? Because I think that this is where you need to approach projects from like every angle. There's some amount of finding out what you can do on your own, augmenting that with knowledge that you get through, let's say, a school or through a coworker or through a job or through just learning through blog posts and YouTube videos or something. Oh, private client work sounds exactly like what you're looking for. Yeah, it could be. Could be that I end up doing that. In typical agency life, you have a statement of work that outlines what you'll deliver and when. With small rounds of amends. Yeah. Okay. I'll write that down too. Thank you guys. Hey, Aro, thank you for the raid. Sorry I had missed this. I'm like super delayed on chat. I appreciate it though, and I really hope your streams are going well. I do mean to check out your channel at some point. I've just been not putting in a lot of time on my homework stuff I have. Could always sell textbooks, videos, courses. Yeah, I wonder how much money they make doing that, though. This is what I consider to be like small time sales. Let's say you get your whole class every semester to buy this. You've got whatever, 30, 60 students. The textbook costs $100. Yeah, I guess you're making some extra money from that, but you're kind of also exploiting your students. Hey, Yasu. Yasu. Yeah. Sorry, it's not teaching web dev. Yeah, it's a large realm to learn. This is not what I'm saying. I know you know that it's not what I'm saying, but I for sure don't ever want people to feel like I'm gatekeeping when it comes to education or programming or development or anything. I fully encourage people to learn as much as they can. Where am I from? I'm from the US. And what's your experience with Unity? Dots? I don't know what Dots is. Unity I used for a couple of months. I didn't really use it for too much. Dots. Yeah, I don't know what Dots is. ECS I use pretty extensively. Kubernetes I haven't used at all. So my orchestration on on the game that I made, Botland, was through ECS. If you don't want to market, just build my project for me. Have a half working prototype. What's your hourly rate? My hourly rate right now is incredibly high, so I gotta figure this out a little bit more. But I think I'm like looking minimally at $100 an hour for even like side projects like this, and that's like a baseline. It all depends on the work that's being asked for. Getting into programming as a side hobby while in university, how important do you think knowing algorithms is for landing a job? I think it's pretty important. I think a lot of companies right now have a hiring process that is very algorithm focused because there's something that you might have heard of whiteboard coding, where you're put in front of a whiteboard and you get a marker and they say write out an algorithm. And I think that algorithms are one of the things that actually do translate a little bit into coding. A lot of times we get questions where you're like, this will never come up on the job. And one of the things I think is actually terrible, whiteboard coding will never come up on an actual job. You will never write out syntactically correct code on a whiteboard. And yet well, I guess you're not really judged too much on syntax usually, but you are asked to write code on a whiteboard. It doesn't really happen. So algorithms do come up. I think it's important. And I don't think you'll be remiss learning them. How's the job search going? I haven't really been doing it. I need to I need to pick it up. Get weights or body weight exercise. Yeah. I don't want to buy weights because I always feel like they'll eventually just sit around even if I'm motivated. I actually like going to the gym because when I'm there, I'm like, well, I already had to get here, so I might as well do something. Can you say the same thing about Adam Learns? If you aren't comfortable marketing yourself freelancing, how can you be comfortable marketing that? But that's the thing is I'm not really doing a good job marketing that either, right? Yeah. But I'm in a period of discomfort, I would say, in my life where I feel like I'm questioning a lot of things I shouldn't be questioning and I'm not doing the right things. So I'll get back on track at some point, and that's where I want to take some time. So, like I said, I'm not going to stream tomorrow. Today's stream is going to go on for as long as there's conversation to be had, and then I'll go take a little bit of a vacation, I guess. And where do I live? I'm in Washington State right now in the U.S. Any SDET career advice? That's a good question. Wonder if I have good enough advice to give from being an SDET. I think it's probably tougher to find career progression as an SDET because fewer companies have it as a standalone role. So I think my advice would be plan for being more of a developer than an SDET, just to give yourself a parachute. I guess that's what other people are saying. Avoid it, don't do it. But yeah, I think the softer way of saying that is, yeah, plan for it eventually becoming obsolete at many companies, and that the companies who still do it could eventually shift. Because I mean, I was an SDET for 3.5 years, and then the company kind of pulled the rug out from under everybody and said, okay, no more SDETs. Mostly got asked algorithm question at big companies. Smaller companies get practical interview projects. Yeah, I think both have their pros and cons. The algorithm stuff you can prepare for quite a lot, but the practical interview projects that you have for take home just cost your own time. I know you said somewhere in person as well. I think those are a little bit more fair. In fact, I think they're much more fair. I think pair programming as an interview is a great way of interviewing developers. The marketing is not the easiest. You may check out freelance platforms. Yeah. I I see what you're saying, and I that is definitely something I should consider here. I'm saying this a lot of like that's something I should consider because I haven't stopped to consider practically anything. So I've written down a lot of notes. I do have some direction for this, and I want to just start my massive gatekeeping campaign of 2020. Dots data oriented. What's the TS though? Technology stack. But I guess I still don't totally know what it means. You have a lot of dedicated people here. Do you not have a Patreon, or can I not sustain you? I closed my Patreon when I started looking for a job because I didn't want people to give money if I didn't need the money. But no, I don't think Patreon could sustain me. That's one of the things I learned pretty early on in the Adam Learns endeavor. Adam Learns, I would say, kind of realistically started like late February, and back then the monetization goal was Twitch and Patreon. And the idea was that people watching, if they wanted to spend money, they could spend money either through subbing or pledging on Patreon. And I realized this wouldn't work because even at my maximum viewership, let's say I had like 400 people every day, which is pretty good for science and technology, not very good for Twitch, but 400 people every day, like how much am I really going to end up monetizing that? And let's say they're only interested in that particular project and then they fade in and out over the course of other projects. So I ended up switching to selling courses. So yeah, I don't think I'll do Patreon again unless I work on this full time again. Well, what I was saying is this is 100 an hour for part time, and also, like I said, the baseline. Like what I'd really be asking for is likely a lot more than that. Just dejection for things not going as smoothly as you hoped, and also not knowing the answers to marketing most. Yeah, I think that could be a lot of it, Punky Monkey. Yeah, for sure. And that's why I say I'm sure this is coming off to some people as like, wait, this guy applied for jobs for like a week and now he's already upset. Like, it's not exactly that way. I think there are a lot of smaller, nuanced influences here that are hard to get across in a short amount of time. But they play into things like, okay, how did Botland go? How did Adam Learns go so far? Kind of what are the sort of social pressures slash marriage, I guess, sorts of things, money, jobs, career. Some of these might seem like they're the same notes, but they mean different things in my mind a little bit. Hey, Juan. Main resume experience was personal projects, barely got interviews. So I guess that having some education. I see what you're saying. Yeah, and it all depends on the interviewers too and their biases. Yeah. The 100 an hour is, like I said, it's a baseline. That's like the absolute minimum. That is not actually what I've asked for from any company, but that's like to give people a ballpark idea. Knowing how to speak developers matters as much as knowing how to develop on a team. Yeah, I think so too. I think there are a lot of very strong personalities in the kind of developers that I've seen before. I remember this just absolutely humorless guy. This is one of all the people in the world that there are, and some of them have some crazy things going on in their lives. It's normal, humorless people that I don't totally understand. Like they get what jokes are, but they don't place any value on them. Anyway, I don't even know why I was talking about that. I know it was like knowing how to speak to developers is what I just mentioned there, but yeah, I think it's navigating people's personalities sometimes as a developer. How much I get paid when I first started out of college? I won't be sharing that. Yeah, sorry. What's Botland on Chris's GitHub? Oh, I think he was going to do a community-based project about making a new Botland landing page. I really, really, really need to go back to Adam Learns marketing. Yeah, yeah, I think I do. Yeah, this is your entire problem. I know. I think that has a lot to do with it. But as I mentioned, I don't know how much of this has to do with my own mentality as opposed to my capability. So I feel like I have the capability to market, but I don't have the mentality for it. And what I mean by that is, like I said, if I wanted to get data for Adam Learns right now, instead of when you go to the site, instead of popping up this dialogue, hey, there are cookies. Like I could have this checked by default. And there, I'm just blurring the line a little bit, right? And so now when you close this, maybe I say, well, they accepted it. Or I could just not even have this asking for permission, right? Who cares what laws I'm violating? But I don't want to do that stuff. So I think that's kind of the same thing with marketing there. A lot of these little tricks that it's like, well, it's not really wrong. It's not unethical. But you just keep stacking them on top of each other. What, in my opinion, is the best type of interview? My favorite type of interview that I've had so far has been pair programming with someone who's on the job and who's actually interested in your like development mindset and process. I think that's been a nice way of figuring out, does this person know what they're talking about? Do you like the company? Do you like the person you might eventually work with? I thought that was pretty nice. That takes a decent amount of time from the company's perspective, though, which is why they give you take home problems because that takes almost no time from their perspective. They have you spin your wheels for like 4 hours and come back, and then they can just validate it. See, oh, well, does it work? And if it doesn't work, how close was it to working? So the targeting this, that seems like a sweet spot for a full stack. Is full stack contracting, did it just pay less than other parts of the stack? Because this is something I've been wondering about. I feel like full stack requires you to know more, and yet some of the jobs I've seen don't seem to pay a whole lot. Made you reverse engineer a program on the spot. I think it's gonna be kind of cool, depending on exactly what you're doing. It's a cybersecurity company, so it makes sense. Like I think that's a pretty cool interview. Could you do as a small gift before you go on your vacation? Share some of your notes. Oh, all my notes are, well, not all of my notes, but most of my notes, and hopefully someone had already typed this, although I'm delayed on chat by a few minutes, are available via the notes command. So pretty much everything you see in this green notebook is available for you guys right now for free. So yeah. And as recently as yesterday I was typing into here for the TypeScript notes. These were made apparently on March, but whatever. The dates I actually modified this stuff was more recent. Yeah, June 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd. I always wondered when I should use classes when programming. Can you enlighten? Can you share more about that when possible? So there are a lot of principles that you'll typically see in programming that can be summed up as an acronym, like DRY, which is don't repeat yourself, SOLID, which is a whole bunch of stuff, and single responsibility principle, and all these other things. And so generally what you want to do when you're making a class is form an abstraction that makes sense. That's like the very short intro into making classes. And how that works is a much more involved process than for me to just say, like, here's when you use a class. And it also depends on, so you might have heard of object-oriented programming. There are other paradigms of programming that don't use classes at all. Like if you're using a functional paradigm, you don't have this concept of like inheritance classes. So yeah, I'm not sure how I could shed light on this too much in a short amount of time. Oh, they're Unity things. Okay. Oh. ECS wasn't Amazon's ECS. Oh, I've only used Unity for like a month or two. I don't even know if that person's still here, but yeah, I only used it for a short amount of time. By the way, thank you for clarifying that. Did I disclose my expected salary, internal, external? Are you looking for suggestions from here rather than hunt yourself? I still don't know. I have a lot of big question marks up in the air right now. So did I disclose the expected salary? The absolute minimum that I wanted to make was $100,000 per year part-time. And I didn't really discuss full-time too much, but it's roughly double that. So those are the minimums that I have. And yeah, suggestions and everything. I got to take some time to just think about what I want. Definitely find something that supports, even in small steps. Find $1 million idea. I hope so. Am I working for someone already? No, not Thiago. So I'm self-employed and have been for the last 5 years. And the only times that I would say I like worked for another company, there was the sponsorship that I did with Brilliant, which I wouldn't. It's not like I'm really working for them. I mean, I guess technically you could count Twitch. I guess I'm kind of making them money, but I'm not working at Twitch. I'm just a Twitch partner. And then the other time was, I guess, the first robotics championship. They had paid me money to go do some content over there. I find it so hard to talk to humorless people. Well, and I get when someone's sense of humor is different from mine, but I've seen some people who I never saw them laugh at any jokes, and I never saw them make any jokes themselves. I wonder what was their life like. If I get a well-paying job and realize that place is filled with toxic people, what are you going to do? I don't know how much you're insulated from that when you work remotely. You're probably not insulated from it, but that's a very hard question to answer, Gluskov. I think that it's the thing that I can't say black and white, here's what I would do. It's more like, how do I work around that for a bit? There's only so much toxicity I can handle before I would probably shut down and be like, this is not the job for me. Dark marketing. I think it's dark patterns that you're talking about. Yeah, so like dark patterns are this whole questionable marketing stuff that you do where it's not usually illegal, but it's highly questionable. Full stack means it'll work more. Well, that's what I was wondering is like, why do I see full stack jobs that don't pay very much? It might just be that the company doesn't. I agree, MKA. Yeah. There is definitely a middle ground. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of those sorts of marketing skills. I think my issue is that in the past, there's a lot of, okay, I came up with an idea and now we have to go test out this idea and then it doesn't work. And I wonder, what did I even learn from that? Was it the idea that was wrong? Was it something else that was wrong? Like, I don't know what I've taken from my marketing experience so far. I mean, a 3-month React Bootcamp dev. Is that actually what they mean? I wonder if that's what that means. Is like, we want to hire a bootcamp graduate. Huh. Typically people that fire full stack are just smaller companies that pay less. I maybe even hire full stack or just companies that pay less. Larger companies pay very well. Yeah, because the way I was thinking about it is like, my full stack experience was intense, right? Doing everything I did for Botland. like coming up with the infrastructure design for everything, how components are going to talk to each other, then figuring out how they'll be available, learning the whole cloud platform. So that's why I always thought, why are full stack engineers not making like double what the other ones are? Well, it stands for five things, right? I don't totally remember. There's what, single responsibility. I don't remember object. I don't remember Liskov substitution. Yeah, I don't remember the whole thing. I always have to look it up. How much industry experience do I have? I haven't shared the whole thing. I don't. I basically like haven't shared my resume on stream and don't want people kind of reverse engineering that. But I would say a good amount. I shouldn't be advertising myself. I definitely be more comfortable in just Node and React. I think that's the term. I think it's full stack engineer. And I think you're probably advertising yourself just fine. I think really the hallmark of any good engineer is, can you learn new things? So it's not someone who's like, I'm a back end dev, so yeah, I'm not even going to try to understand what's going on the front end. Like if there's a problem there, you should hopefully be able to learn it, even if it's not your responsibility. I'm not saying you go do it, but you should be able to. And so it sounds like you're able to do that stuff. So yeah, I think you should market yourself that way. That's how I need to earn in my area. I live in the Seattle-ish area, and Seattle jobs generally pay very well. The cost of living here is definitely higher than a lot of other parts of the country. I don't know where it ranks in the entire country, but there are a lot of tech companies around here. Full stack is an entire path from server OS, web server, website, client browser. Full stack devs don't exist. Yeah, but this is really taking exception to the term, like you mentioned. You hate the phrase, but you know what it represents, and it's not exactly what you think of when you say full stack, but yeah, people do know what the term generally means. It's like back end, front end DevOps. I regret not meeting you. Yeah, I didn't even know you were there until the tweet that you put out. I don't know if that was while I was still there or not. I was insanely busy during that time. I was so surprised at how tired I was by the end of a day of the work that I was doing. I remember I fell asleep at like 6:30 p.m. one of those days, and I that was both time zones that I went to were ahead of me, so it meant that it was really like 4 o'clock my time, and I was still like zonked out. Is there a particular reason you've not wanted to go into consulting? Your skill set's so adaptive, I believe you to be invaluable. I don't totally know how to get into it for the kind of thing I guess I'd be looking for. Or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a great reason, Spio. Yeah, I need to still look into things and keep an open mind for this. I feel like you're in the mindset of wanting to make a career of your own projects. Yes, yeah, for sure. This question, the answer is yes, and it's yes in like the largest font size you can muster and still fit on your monitor. Yeah, so my future career is something I cared about like 6, 7 years ago. And so I was pursuing jobs along those lines. I learned a lot about myself doing that actually, because what I thought I wanted to do was a lot of like game development stuff. And hearing about the industry, so I worked at a game dev job that was treated like a job by most people. And then I heard a lot of stories about AAA game companies and industry conditions and people wanting to unionize. And I don't know, some of that put me off of game dev, but other things that put me off of game dev were that I feel like the job itself kind of takes the fun out of game dev for me. I don't know what does that. That's a very personal thing, though. Yeah, kind of sounds like instead of trying to find the perfect job, you should find one to hold you over. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, this is why I want to take a step back. I want to be able to answer these questions and figure out what I actually want. I gotta, like, even though I'm talking to you guys about this, there's still some part of my mind that's blocked off thinking I need a vacation, and then I can think about this stuff. People are different when you've met face to face. Toxic people are worse. Yeah, I think one of the things that's kind of nice about streaming is I am a little bit more assertive in how I feel about things. Like you've seen me, if you've been watching the stream for longer than even like a month, you've probably seen me say to somebody like, okay, let's stop talking about that, or this is not the kind of thing I expect out of this stream. Now, granted, I have a, a higher position of soft authority here than I would in a job. A lot of times you have a ladder essentially, and it's hard to argue with people who are 3 hops above you on that ladder. what I mean by ladder is just literally like you are an IC developer and you have a lead, and then they have a boss, and then there's the VP, and then there's the president, and that's maybe about hops. I'm not talking about like quality of people or anything. But yeah, so I haven't really totally experienced that. I certainly experienced toxicity on the internet. I mean, even being a development streamer, the amount of people who still come in here and just say whatever they want to say is a little surprising. I think the term gets thrown around loosely. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's something else that's like that. Development. I'm not sure. There probably is. Iron Fire, I guess. Could be either. Yeah, maybe it is the architect role. And maybe that's what I thought of as being part of the back end and part of the front end is developing, there's designing what that all looks like. And that's what I think of Vivasor. That's definitely part of it. I think that some companies are just trying to lump a bunch of roles into one and then say, well, it was your job. Open close principle. That's right. Yeah. Open for extension, close for modification, right? Oh, I've never heard the term full cycle, but you're potentially correct about that. I don't know. What's my view on office politics? Do you like it? Do you hate it? I generally don't like it. I think it's not really exclusive to working in the office. I think if there's any sort of like power hierarchy that it's bound to happen. And so it happens even if you're in a club where it's just a bunch of people getting together for free, you'll still have politics there. So no, I hate that. I don't like that at all. How long does it take to be full stack? That's a tough question to answer because it's even if you were to answer. So let's say we broke it down into okay, it's back end, it's front end, and it's DevOps. Then you'd have to answer each of these questions of how long does it take to get good at, and then that thing. So back end, front end, and DevOps. And even these questions, you can't really answer exactly that way, right? Like back end isn't one technology; it's like a grouping of a technology. So do you know how to program? Do you know how to maintain software? Do you know how to do whatever other parts of this process there are? And how long does that take? And then do you know the specific technologies? Like, do you know PHP? Do you know Node.js? So yeah, I can't really answer that. I imagine it's probably like a year or two if you just wanted to shoot from the hip kind of answer. By the way, I'm delayed on chat by like 5 minutes now. I'm at 11:23. How do you feel database can tie into a resume like SQL and its variants? Would that fall under full stack? A database to me typically falls under backend, which means that it falls under full stack since I consider backend to be part of full stack. And yet I guess you could sort of consider it to be part of a front end because you have front end databases. Like if you think about it, something like IndexedDB in your browser or local storage even, they're like front end databases. But they're not typically as involved as something like SQL would be. So yeah, I would consider it backend. Yeah, so this is I've definitely heard this a lot. Yeah. In a lot of other parts of the world, getting what I would consider to be even a low salary in the US, I shouldn't say that, not the US, in where I live. I live in Washington State. Yeah. I know there are vastly different scales for these things. Product is, in my opinion, industry defining. There's Seattle, most ambitious cross platform experience game I've seen. I'll write it down. Okay. Yeah. Apparently, I only copy the word scene. There we go. Okay, there. This is the bottom of chat. So now you can finally see this page here. See what else? Anyone to work in gaming then finding out minimum 60-hour weeks and 40-hour pay? Yeah, I don't know what about it actually killed kind of the fun of it for me though. But I didn't give it enough of a shot to say that every company would be like that. Yeah. Finally, you never have real senior full stack developers. Can't be a senior in front end and back end. I mean, can't you be? I feel like I don't like front end very much, but I feel like I learned it to the point where if I applied for a front end job, I could do it, and if I applied to a back end job, I could do it. Yeah, I think there's always stuff you can learn. I don't think it's going to be that you've mastered every technology ever. I don't think that'll ever happen for anybody because there are too many technologies. But I think you can learn enough of front end and back end to say that, okay, I'm a senior developer in both of those parts. Yeah, COL. This explains why 100K is a modest amount. Yeah, it's kind of part of the FAQ on the site of like, why is that my monetary goal? And I just stopped linking it to people because people keep asking. That's the whole point of an FAQ. Where's the FAQ? Here it is. Yeah, monetary goals. Yeah, this already kind of mentions it. Naturally gravitate toward being a full stack dev. I don't know. I don't know if that would happen with everybody. I think your personality factors into it quite a lot. Like, I think I'm generally curious as a developer, but then there are lots of parts where I feel like if I'm going to spend extra time doing something for work, I'm going to probably spend extra time doing it in the area I'm actually responsible for. But I see what you're saying. Hey, Rox. Yeah, I'm doing well. I think this stream has been, it's almost like therapy for me. I should just lay down on a couch for this whole show. I have a bed right back there. Yeah, I could just go lay down and have everybody talk to me. Yeah, that's what I feel like this stream has been. People say senior for front end. Do they apply overall UX? I think sometimes they do, which is something I definitely cannot do, and nor do I ever want to do that. I feel like I have very bad art skills and very bad like visual skills. So when it comes to UX, actually UX is more than just UI. But when it comes to UI, yeah, I don't feel like I'm very good at that. I feel like you need to run your own company to stay happy. Corporate life might kill you. This is basically what I realized from my corporate careers that I had is, and this is part of what the crux of everything here. I wrote this earlier that I do for myself what I don't think I could do for another company. Like I said, Adam Learns was the most work I've ever done in my life. And I was never so motivated to do it as then. And I knew I couldn't keep up with the pace I was working at for a year even. And apparently it lasted a couple of months. That was still, I think, pretty good, but that was a ton. But I ever do that sort of thing for another company? I don't think so. And I know there are people out there who can, and that's where I wonder when I was saying capability versus mentality. I clearly have the capability to work hard. I don't think I would do that for a different company of like 80-hour weeks sort of thing. I think I would work for a company. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say I'd be a lazy bum, but I don't think I could put in the amount of energy I do as in my own stuff. How do you feel about that? You're so good at this, Godspeed. Let me open up to you about everything that's happened in my life now. Have any opinion about software dev jobs at Amazon? You know, Amazon, I think it's a rep across the board pretty much of being this like work you to the bone kind of company. But I live in the Seattle area, and so I have a lot of friends who work at Amazon, and I've heard everything that I've heard from every other company. There's some teams where, yes, they'll work you to the bone, and some teams where, no, it's totally relaxed. You set your own boundaries. And so I think that's almost universally true of all the big companies around here. You will find a team at every company, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Netflix, that is terrible to work for. And you'll find a team that is like the perfect fit for you because they're huge companies. They have pretty much everything. So a dev job at Amazon is so vague that I don't know how much you can really generalize about it. Well, generalize, excuse me. So any opinion about it, I don't know if that was even along the lines you wanted an answer for, but that's what I think. If you aren't on a good team, it'll eat you alive. Yeah. Junior, mid, seniors, years of experience typically, not how good they are at a given technology. Excuse me. Yeah. I think some companies treat this differently too. Because I've seen applications that say things like, you should know the ins and outs of this technology. And that's what I take senior to mean. And then I've seen other people just say, you need to be working with this technology for a certain amount of time. And as I mentioned, sometimes they say you need to have been working with this technology for longer than it's even been around for. It's like, you need to have been a Windows user for the last 100 years. Obviously, it never show up, but that's the gist of it. I associate the stream as therapy for once. Well, and this is what I thought would have made the job hunting process easier. I don't say that to brag or anything, but I have done a lot on stream. And even if I haven't done a lot on stream, I've done my work on stream. So let's say I was just doing a regular, like I just worked on JavaScript for the last 5 years, never really sought out any new technologies. I just worked on JavaScript. At the very least, you'd have insight into how I work. And so I thought that would make this process easier. But what I found out is that nobody looks at any of the hiring materials you give them. Your resume, your cover letter. Like I applied to a job and at one point the guy was saying something where I'm like, look, I don't mean to sound weird here. Did you read my cover letter? He's like, oh, I didn't get it. And I said, oh, didn't I apply through this site? And so he's like, oh, there it is. Why do you send a cover letter? That's like the one thing that a recruiter should read, right? And he was honest about it. He wasn't like, oh, I still don't see it or something. So I at least know that he got it. But yeah, so what I thought is that, okay, if I try to get hired at a company, they'll at least check out like a tiny portion of the stream and see, okay, here's what he does, here's what he knows. Okay, he seems like he's competent. But then when they don't look at even the cover letter, it's like, what do I do? Like, how do I proceed? So this is part of the marketing job is maybe I should just send an email being like, hey, look, and this is what I'm probably going to do. I'm probably going to do that. I think this is a great idea. A video portfolio. I'm going to do like a 5-minute video, something like that, and say like, here's what I've been doing the last 5 years. All right. I don't want you to assume this is a Unity game. I don't want you to assume that I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I designed and developed these systems myself. I definitely am confident about my skills as a developer. And if you don't watch this video, I'm not even going to work for your company. Obviously, I can't say that in the video because then they'd never know about it. But that's how I feel. Full stack is a silver bullet. You have teams of just full stack. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do know what you're getting at. I think there are different levels of specialization you can get to, but I think there's a threshold for where you call yourself a senior developer. And then there are technologies that you get through breadth as well as depth. And maybe that's why you don't see a bunch of full stack developers. Although there are probably companies that have that. Well, I think this is true system win. I think I have the energy and skill to succeed on my own. And I think it's a problem of time right now, more so than it's a problem of like product or direction. What happened to Botland? Yeah, thanks TS. You know what, TS, you should just be a VIP. There, done. I feed off other people's appreciation, so corporate life fits better for me generally. All right, note to self: appreciate Funky Monkey more. Copy paste. Get Funky Monkey to still work. Do you think it's interest that's holding you back in that regard, or the risk that goes into trying an experiment for a company? So sorry, I know I'm like super delayed in chat, and this is from 4 minutes ago, so I don't totally remember the context of this. But I think we were talking about working for someone else instead of working for myself. I don't I don't know if it's interest. I feel like one of the things I've always tried to pursue in my life is if something seems like you're interested in it or it's the right idea, then you go do that thing. So I've seen a lot of people say things like, I'm going to start dieting in a week from now when I finally come back from my vacation or something. It's like, no, just diet on your vacation. Like start it now. If you are, I've heard a lot of people say like, I'm interested in learning coding. And then a year from then, they still don't know coding. And it's like, well, then were you really interested in it? So that's getting like very nitpicky and judgmental. I know that. But so this sort of thing is like my interest I'm pursuing. If I want to make a game, I usually like, I'll start to make a game. Or if I want to start this company, I'll start a company. And that's where I wonder how a job could help with that. So there have been one or two diamonds in the rough that I've found that I thought this would actually be a cool company to work for. One of them was a job where they said, you are to onboard all of our engineers by teaching them JavaScript and JavaScript paradigms. And I thought that sounds really cool. Like I'm basically a teacher, but for employees, and I could further my own skills. And also, I don't know, like there are a lot of things that tied into that, I felt. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I think in general, I'm a little disinterested right now, but that's the take a step back mentality that needs to happen. One thing that may help working in a corporate environment is to build up savings. Yeah. Keeps you feeling in control. Yeah. And generally in the US where I live, that'll happen just kind of by default. Like if you go work for Amazon, it really doesn't matter where you're working in Amazon. You're making a good amount of money and probably a ton of stock. Yeah, you never know what you're getting into. Yep. And companies won't really represent it the way that they know the problems are. I've asked some very, what might be seen as prying questions. And some of the questions that I've asked are things like, have you seen someone get disciplined on your team before? And I think that's a pretty good question to ask because it might not be obvious that those sorts of things typically should not happen in a public setting. So if someone's like, yeah, I've seen that, then I would want to know more. Like, okay, well, what's happened? Or how frequently? One of my favorite questions is, how frequently do you work on nights and weekends? This question tells you so much. And it doesn't matter if you're fine with it or you're not fine with it. It'll still tell you a lot. So if you're fine with it, then you'll know what the expectations are. And you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I should do too. If you're not fine with it and everyone's like, yeah, I work nights and weekends, then you might think, that's a red flag. Yeah. Tell us your productivity routine or give us examples how to be productive and stay up to date. Did I just skip like super far ahead in chat? I clicked someone's name. Yeah, it was Muck. Yeah, I'll get to that in a sec. Sorry. I'm still like 6 minutes behind on chat. Let me keep going. A lot of us are going through the same thing or have the same feeling. I was saying it's therapy for me. I don't know about for you guys. I don't know if you see this as therapy. Cover letters straight to the trash. Interviewer should have read it anyway. And I'm surprised about that because in my mind, the cover letter was maybe the only thing to read because it should have been for that company, I guess. But maybe so many people copy paste them that, man, I don't know. A lot of this sounds to me like just cold emailing people when I was looking into getting influencers to stream Botland. Doesn't your broad skill set lend you well for concepting and experimenting kind of gigs? Maybe for small teams and startups? Just team up with some business wizard? So anything that doesn't pay money and will instead pay equity, so for example, a split 50-50, that's, I feel, even riskier than what I'm doing right now because I have a split of 100-0, or however you might want to consider it. I'm getting all of the money that I take in for my company. And yet I'm not a business wizard, so I'm missing that part, I guess. But yeah, it does sound riskier. Minimum amount of effort was not achieved. Yeah. I know that no HR rep before me even looks at their resume. It's all automated. Yeah. And it's kind of sad that it works that way. And I understand why it happens. To me, this sounds a lot of what I read online about like people's experience with dating sites is they send out a bunch of messages and they don't even know if they're being read. It's like that's kind of how this feels sometimes. Hey, no name. I hate no Cromer. Go for T-shaped skill sets. Everyone can do a bit of everything, but each type has their own specialty. Yeah, I think that's like a fine philosophy to have. Yeah. So okay. So productivity, how to be productive and stay up to date. I think this is all about identifying gaps in your own knowledge. It doesn't matter what I tell you about how to stay up to date if you already know those sorts of things. But how you go about doing that is one, being introspective, figuring out where do I struggle? What don't I know? What have I been putting off? And two is just kind of generally being up to date by reading and not necessarily learning. So blog posts, other people, your coworkers, and they might be like, "Oh, have you heard of GraphQL?" And you'll be like, "No, I haven't heard of that. What does that do?" And they give you the like a 30-second elevator pitch, and then you go learn about it. Hey, Tom. Got to build relationships with recruiters. They may be knowledgeable, but nowhere near how much you'll have. Yeah, they deal with a lot of people, and they deal with a lot of people that are kind of on a throwaway basis. Because if you think about it, even if a recruiter hires you for the job, they talk to you, what, 6 times in that process? And then they'll probably never talk to you again. Because that's been my experience. And that's assuming you get hired. If you don't get hired, they might talk to you 2 times in that process or 1 time and then never talk to you again in your life. Excuse me. If you like teaching, why not try consulting? Yeah, I need to figure out how to get a consulting job though, because I think the way this would work is I'd have to like advertise my skill set to people. I think that's tough to do. By the way, the stream might cut out pretty soon, and if it does, let me go to my mobile site really fast because I only have so much mobile bandwidth, and then I have to get 3 more gigabytes. And it's about the time where I think that would happen. Let me see. So check balance. They say I have 760 megabytes left. And yeah, they don't let me purchase another 3 gigabytes yet. Yeah, so I'll try to keep an eye on that. Hey, Ingvar. Why do you use Yada instead of Chatterino or default Twitch chat? I talked about this the other day. I have a note called the quest for the perfect Twitch chat, and this kind of talks about it. So if you want to find out more, take a look at my notes and go to websites and then that particular note. But yeah, in short, it has all of the features that I wanted. Wait, did I miss a question? Oh, the disciplining people in public thing? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm glad I could help with that. Maybe I should write it down in my own thing. Mention my... No, this is actually separate, I guess. Or talk about asking other questions. How frequently do you work nights and weekends? Have you seen someone get disciplined? Okay. Thoughts on being a sales engineer? Got my first job as a sales engineer right out of college. Feel like I hate these PowerPoint stuff. I want to be more hands-on. Feel lost now. I don't actually totally know what a sales engineer is. So what I think it is, and you had the job, so I mean, you could tell me, and I know I'm delayed on chat right now. I'm like 6 minutes behind. But what I think it is, it's something where a company is having trouble and you need to tell them how they would architect a solution using your company's product. And maybe it's not exactly that. So the job sounds important, but one of the things I value out of whatever I'm about to do for the next couple of years is keeping my skills sharp. And I feel like there you get kind of tied into a particular technology stack. And yeah, like you said, maybe more PowerPoint types of things rather than actual coding. Have I considered approaching a recruiter? Got my current gig via a recruiter who arranged a meeting with 5 or so companies. Yeah, I think this is what Nuka DeLuca was talking about with LinkedIn Premium. I'm thinking maybe I should take a look at that. I feel the same about people being interested. Some things are only true when manifested in action. Some things are only true, should only be said in hindsight. This part is a little strange, but I think I see what you're saying. You're just talking about anything that has to do with development? Yep, that's pretty much at Apex. And yeah, is that why it's therapy for you? I think I'm so okay. I always try to be transparent and honest. Ideally in all parts of my life, but on the stream as much as I can be. And some of these things are like you'll hear my voice waver every once in a while. It's like getting right to the peak of where I can kind of handle things logically, and then I start to get a little bit emotional. And yeah, this is as much as it might not seem like it, me bearing my soul. So I'm trying to be open with you guys, and that's why it feels like therapy. It's a very weird thing to do so publicly on the internet, I guess. Hey, Goody. You have to keep reaching out to recruiters, check in with them, tell them when you're looking, never settle. Yeah, I had done this once. There was a job. It was actually the last job that I had gotten. I got like oh, hey, sorry, you don't really know our tech stack. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go learn all your tech stack then. And so over the course of the next month, I went and learned a bunch of things. And they're finally like, okay, we'll give you an interview. Did I go to the gym? I did when the gym was open. Now it's not open anymore. But yeah, I would go 3 times a week and I would just do weightlifting normally. Yeah. No, I have internet. Short story is I'm on mobile internet and my mobile internet only gives me 3 gigabytes at a time. And so when I run out, I have to get 3 gigabytes more. And it's free to do so because they have an unlimited plan for right now, but it will eventually just cut out completely. Yeah, putting out a hey, you're available. And so this is why I had started doing this process on stream, is because you guys were essentially like my coworkers for the last 5 years. And I figured if there were any job opportunities there, then I'd find out about them. And I did. A bunch of people reached out to me. I got like, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 20 different people saying, hey, I could put in a good word at my company. So yeah, that was really nice, except for I hadn't really identified what I was looking for. So it was very hard for people to say. This might be up your alley. A bot that looks at that data left and then presses the button for you automatically. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, that wouldn't work because they're updating thing. Like if I click the button of how much data do I have left, it's still going to say 700 megabytes. And if I click it again 10 minutes from now, it'll still say 700. And then all of a sudden it'll just be out. And so yeah, it's pretty rough. Just chasing their commission. Yeah, so how I said earlier, this is how prejudices get formed. I haven't typically had good experience with recruiters in the past. I don't think that means all recruiters are bad. But it's led to me thinking, okay, there's got to be some reason why I've had that experience, right? So it must be that there are just so many candidates and so many people are not representing themselves well or honestly. So now recruiters become distrustful of candidates, and then candidates become distrustful of recruiters, and there's probably some like very involved back and forth there. Okay, hey Polly. Okay, we made it to the bottom of chat again. Okay. Feels that you can be like dev advocate. Yeah. Oh, JoJo reference. Okay, I haven't ever watched that. Well, I did hear. Is it Giovanni's theme? Someone said that some music I've made sounded like that, and so I went and listened to it. I think it was Giovanni. Anyway, probably depended on company. So yeah, I was looking into dev advocate roles too, and that's what I thought. Oh man, this is a lot of just like marketing sorts of tasks, and not exactly, but very similar in that you've got to come up with an idea, you got to pursue it, and there's a lot of ambiguity there in that idea. Technical sales, so Google Cloud, for example, you have to advocate GCP to customers and get them on board. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, that is like dev advocate than the way I was thinking about it. And thanks, EJ. Thing is, your frustrations are the same things I think about, so I understand. Yeah, I imagine that's why people were actually watching this in the first place. Is a lot of people ran into this same thought process and want clarification on it or want to know what someone else did. Is it starting to weigh against you if you're looking for a job? Companies want stable employees. I've been pretty stable in my career. Like I said, I haven't actually shared my resume. But for example, the last 5 years was all just like this startup. And so what I'm portraying here, I'm not using names for a lot of the jobs, so I could be talking about the same job multiple times. It might not sound like that. But yeah, I haven't been through a ton, let me say that. I live and work in a hot tech area as well. Just hope you know these feelings and thoughts are extremely normal and common. Actually super helpful to me. Yeah, I'm glad I can provide some help for other people too, because like I said, for me, this is like therapy. And I also want to be open with you guys about what's happening with the stream. So if I just didn't stream today and I was like, guys, I'm not feeling it, I think that's very different from trying to take a more positive approach. Now, that said, tomorrow I am not planning on stream. And that's one of the few things I'll definitely have to do right after the stream today. I want to take some time to just think about what's going on here. I'll say cancel tomorrow's stream. I had any say tonight, how are you? Thanks, Alucard. And hey, State Space. Deadline, the part-time remote job. That one that we were talking about, no, that had fallen through. So on Wednesday, I had accepted the job, and then on Friday, I heard back saying, sorry, we couldn't actually make it work. So there won't be a job. How do you make a website look more professional? Just keep making websites generally. Until you generally look better over time. Do you have any tips? So making it look professional, if we're talking about looking professional, that's all about like UX design. There are, I guess, a couple other little things, but in general, yeah, I would say you're talking about UX. And how do you get better at that? I'm not very good at it, so I can't really say. But I think you probably just like anything else, you look up some resources, you find out what does it take to be a good designer. What do good websites do? You probably just look at some examples. So for example, let's say you think that some other person's professional site or their resume site looks good. How did it look good? Like where are they putting elements and how do the borders look and what fonts are they using and where is your attention drawn? So in my opinion, that's a lot of UI. It's not necessarily just UX. UI is a lot of like, how do users think and where do you want to direct things. So a good example is like, all right, my phone is my internet, so I can't actually show you right now. But on your phone, you're holding it and you have buttons very easily accessible toward the bottom. So if you put a button way at the top, you've got to like move your hand in a weird position, right? That's a UI consideration you should make, and that's part of looking and seeming professional. Ben, welcome back. Thank you for the resub. And Mop, there's no hard feelings on my end. Like I said earlier, what I was mostly bothered by is that I went from a period of ambiguity to certainty to ambiguity again. That was about it. It's not, I don't know. This person seemed pretty open and honest. So if something changed, that's fine. These things happen. What will be my next move? Yeah, that's what I don't know yet. So my goal over the next few days is find out what I'm actually looking for, what I want, and hopefully by Sunday figure that out so that I can start applying to what's going to matter and make sure that everything I do is in line with that. Yeah, you hire the funky monkey. Yeah. Hey, McGregor. Oh, I might have dodged a bullet. Maybe not. Who knows? And it doesn't matter anymore anyway because the opportunity's not there. Is today the last stream for the week? Yeah, it is. Did it not recognize your sub? I didn't see a message print out about that. Well, I don't know if it would even show in here. By the way, welcome back, Godspeed. Thank you too for resubbing. I think you typically have to refresh and then you'll see a share sub notification show up. Something along those lines. Oh, so yeah, okay, to answer this, I see what you're saying, Tom. So I am not good at that at all. What you see here is the result of Funky Monkey's design, and all I did was implement it. So I could actually show you what that process looks like. Well, I can show you if I have the Adobe link. Hang on a second. Yeah, so here's something. I don't know if this is the most up to date. It doesn't really matter. So what I did, this is what Funky Monkey produced for me, and oh wait, no, this is an old one. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. This is an example of it. So none of this is functional. Like if you click browse courses, it doesn't take you to a courses page. These are just like placeholders, obviously, but they showed me how this would be laid out to the point where I could just say, okay, cool. Now I can look at the border of this, or I could click something and find out exactly what it is and then implement it. Hey, Tequila. What's my main passion in programming? Web dev, game dev, etc. I find that hard to answer. That's all. Yeah, that's one of the things that I also need to figure out. I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite. I think what I've liked is variety, and then getting back to kind of back end development. I think I like game development. I've done it for a long time. I don't like front end development in general. Yeah, I think front end is my least favorite in whatever I'm doing. For the game, it was my least favorite. For my own site, it's my least favorite. I like thinking of how APIs interact with each other, those sorts of things. Get a designer to make a nice design, in this case Funky Monkey, and then you essentially just copy paste. Yeah, so essentially, yes. That's what I would say. But that's one route. And that route ends up costing you money every time you want to change a design. So the other route is to learn how to do those designs yourself. And the way you do that, like I said, is you find resources and also you just look at other sites. So if I were looking at this, like what Funky Monkey did here, I might look at things and say like, okay, well, let's see, we have a common color theme here. Like all these are in this indigo that you see. And then down here, we've got one font across the whole thing. So it's not like I'm seeing 6 different fonts here. Okay, links are clear. There's hover styles on these. Like, what about the spacing between these or between the side? Those are the kinds of things I'd probably look at and try to get better at. I have a job interview as an IT engineer next week. A bit nervous already because they already told me. Oh, because they told me I need to work on a certain task during the interview and I don't have any clue what it's about. What is the task, Tequila? Just jokingly think of it as a glorified website. Yeah. I think that an MMO has some massive requirements on practically every part of the stack. Like, I think the infrastructure for an MMO has to be very tough. Like for a true MMO. Easy James, welcome back. Oops, I meant to type 1/3. I know fractions. I just hit the wrong key on my keyboard. Thank you. Welcome back. So when I think of when I say real MMOs, I mean MMOs that don't instance everything. So I think like Phantasy Star Online and Phantasy Star Online 2, they have instances of like you have four people in like a game world, and then you have lots of people in a chat world or something. I don't know what you want to call it, like a lobby. That's not a real MMO in my mind, and I'm not trying to do a like a move the goalpost kind of thing, but in something like World of Warcraft, where you have just a huge world and you can move across any part of that, and you might have people congregating in one area and then all of a sudden disperse. And so, how do you handle the servers? That is a very, very complex set of problems. Yeah, continuous versus discrete spaces. Exactly. Let's say you don't know the task, they're going to tell me during the interview. Ah, I see. Okay. So the way I interpreted this at first is they told me about a task and I don't know what the task is, or sorry, what I don't know how to do the task. But yeah, what you meant is they told you there's going to be a task and it's just a mystery box. Yeah, that can be a little bit nerve wracking. I think the best you can do is just try to prepare and kind of plan for breadth. But I think what's difficult about that is that we all have strengths and weaknesses, and they say just play to your strengths. So if you have a gap in your knowledge now, knowing that you have the interview next week, how much can you do to patch up that gap? And the answer is you can do a little bit for sure. So let's say you knew it was going to be an algorithm problem and you knew you struggled with graphing problems. Well, then you could go look at some graphing problems, right? Will you become an expert in the next week? No, probably not. But hey, having something to talk about will at least give you a foundational point to say, I saw this before and that answer was kind of like this. Maybe I can apply some of that here. So I would say you've got a tough little situation for yourself right now because nothing's probably going to make you less nervous. You never know everything. Yeah, exactly. And hopefully they'll be merciful as interviewers and know that, hey, this person might not know this, and you should be honest about what you know and don't know, and hopefully you can make it through. I look forward to hearing about it, and good luck, of course. Yeah, a vote's a vote. Family Guy. No instant anything. No portals. It's an infinite procedural world backed by thousands of containers. So one of the things I always thought about is what do you do when people are at the edge of two containers, essentially? So basically, you have someone like imagine you had these parts of the world, and they're just some region, right? So it's like this part, and then this part, and then something else. And so you have someone who's like right here. They'd probably have to be handled by like multiple containers at once, but then there's got to be a single source of authority there. Oh, let me see. How do you copy the header on each page? You just make one HTML file. So Tom, I suggest going through a tutorial for any front end framework. So look at things like React, look at Angular, look at Vue, look at pretty much anything you want to. And I would do this after you feel you've got some HTML, JavaScript, and CSS experience. Once you have that, I feel like these are going to make a lot more sense. And that's what's going to answer that question in full. Whereas right now, all I can tell you is you make components and you put the components onto a page. So what does my code look like? My code for, let's say, the what page should we talk about? Let's talk about just the main page. In, if I could type index, that'd be great. So my index, we have a layout, and then we have some different components here. You see like a link button. We have recent courses. This is just its own component, and it knows what the recent courses are. Hey, Crass. I'm doing okay. We've been having a pretty long conversation today, actually, about just random development things. How have you been? I know, Tom, I think it's okay. I think this is where I always try to steer people towards self-sufficiency and why I have that learn programming guide here. One of the things about this is you don't necessarily know what you don't know. So that mobile frameworks are a thing is something that if you've never developed before, you wouldn't even know is a concept. So you wouldn't know what to ask about. So in this sense, I know I'm not fully answering your question, but I'm trying to still steer you in the right direction. And I hope that's amenable for you. Do interviewers care what language you use to demonstrate a solution during the interview? It depends. I would say they typically don't, as long as you can express yourself in a language that's kind of common ground. But if you're getting hired specifically for a particular language and you said you knew it, you better be able to show that you know it. You know, two servers that cover any coordinate, high availability, and the regions overlapping. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, we're gonna get like very deep into the specifics of this if I keep talking about it. Anyway, it is a tough problem, I think. Been learning web dev for almost 2 years as a hobby, but I took it seriously the last 6 months. Now I'm comfortable with the MERN stack. Problem is, I'm a CS student. I'm not enjoying it very much. I don't think I'm learning useful related to web dev. I think I should start looking for jobs or just keep learning until I graduate. This is very tough. It's a very tough question to answer. Lots of things to consider here. One is that there's this saying, computer science is to computers as astronomy is to telescopes. And it's that there's so much more to computer science than even being at your computer, except for what it's been turned into has been, oh yeah, you turn into a programmer when you get out of school. And that's typically what it ends up being. So if you feel like you know things about programming language concepts, about how a CPU is laid out, about how you design an operating system, about algorithms, about data structures, about any number of other things, if you feel like you know that, or if you feel like rip data. Maybe we should be back online. Okay, I'm back. Yeah. Oh, cool, Metal Storm. Yeah, that's actually really good. And thanks for explaining. Yeah, so Chris, I don't know if you're still here. I'm sorry to hear about that. You're still stressed, but I'm glad you're doing the updates. I hope things are going well. So I will try to continue talking about this a little bit. I know I was giving advice and then I cut off, but yeah, so there are a lot of things to consider here. If you know that you're going to want to do web dev, then your CS degree is probably not going to do a whole lot for you, but you don't know what you're eventually going to want to do, and you might not know what you don't know. So you said the last 2 years you've been getting a lot more serious about that. What about the last 2 years as a CS student? I mean, maybe that's what sparked that interest. By the way, maybe you're not even here to be able to hear this, but I think it's risky. I think maybe you can try to play out the risks by yourself and figure out what you're comfortable with. Because in the end, all I can do is give you, oh, hey, here's my advice, right? But it's your life, and I don't have the repercussions of, oh yeah, quit school, quit your job, do whatever. It's not really gonna affect me in the end, and that's why I say I don't want to take that decision making power. I want to equip you for it. What's the main difference between developing solo versus a team? I'm the only real dev at my company right now and looking to move. There are lots of pros and cons, I think, but I'd say the pros of having a team is that you have other people to learn from. You're not the sole decision maker. This is sometimes massive. I feel like so much of development is just making 400 micro decisions every day, and sometimes that wears on you. And what else? You can split the responsibility. Ah. And this is pretty important too. It's like right now, if you're the only developer and something needs to be developed, you're the one to do it because you're the only developer. So now what happens if there's a large system and you're one of 6 developers? So yeah, I think you should try it out, Potril. The other thing is that you will learn what you like. So I'm sure there are some people out there who they just hate working in a team and they just never want to do it. They want control over everything. And cool. They probably needed to work in a team in order to figure that out. Maybe even 2, 3 teams and find out that it's a commonality for them. I haven't used Blazor, Useless Watcher, so I can't comment on that. But a delayed high. Yeah, everyone should quit their jobs. Everyone should buy Adam Lang's courses. I wish I was part of a team. Do you actually want Max? Because I think there's always mobility to move to a team if you want. you're part of a team, but you're the only developer on it. That's something I don't think I want to do again, is be the only developer on a non-technical team. Because if I'm going to do that, I feel like I should just do my own product. Thoughts on Deno? Haven't used Deno yet. Yeah, useless watcher. I would like to learn about Deno. Blazor is not actually on my radar, really. It's something to learn. I'd like to learn Deno at some point. I've used Node for a while. So I imagine that once it's stabilized a little bit more, it's going to be interesting to get into. Why do videos look better in Firefox than in Chrome? Maybe you got some like network throttling in Chrome, but ideally that shouldn't be the case at all. Only developer on a non-tech team and it's the worst. Yeah, I had that happen once. I was the only developer on a non-technical team. Did not like it one bit. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to start to wind down here a little bit. I think this has been a really interesting stream. I also think it's kind of interesting that, we're not alone. It's very unlikely that you are experiencing anything unique in your life. I sounded positive and I made it sound negative. But really, truly, like, think about it. You have bad luck befall you. You have good luck. You get a job. You get rejected from a school. Something happened. Like, all those things have happened to somebody else, probably, right? And so, in finding a job, in talking about development, we all have thoughts that I think are good to talk about, and it's good to have a platform to discuss this stuff. It sounds like at least some of this was helpful for you guys. I think it was helpful for me. I have a lot of things to think about. And in getting asked the question a lot of times of what are you looking for in your job, I find out that my answer right now is really just, I don't know. Like, it's a means to an end. And I think I need to delve into that further. I do for the reason you said. I'd like to be able to talk to someone about small decisions. Yeah, this is major to me. If I ever start another company with someone else, if I ever start another company, I guess, I definitely want there to be someone else to talk to. It's been one of the biggest crutches that I had started Botland with a co-founder, and then the co-founder didn't have enough time to work on it, and so they bowed out. And then I didn't have someone to run all the decisions by who was as invested as I was. That was very difficult. So yeah, I think it can be nice. All right, well, let's go find someone to host. I really, really thank you guys for joining in today. I've got a couple of things. I'll just link that one, actually. Let's just link that. Yeah, and I'll go find somebody to host. Who is online? Okay, in an effort to spread around the hosting a bit, we shall go host Rhyme. Yeah, I'm gonna end the stream now. I won't be streaming tomorrow, so please do join Discord if you want to find out about the next stream. I think it'll probably be Monday, but I'm not positive. I'm not promising that it'll be then. So thanks again for watching. Again, I hope you guys got something out of it. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys later. Have a great weekend.